Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Deadly Dungeon Rising post-mortem. Today, I am joined by my good friends, Travis and Coron. Hello, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good to be here.
We're just going to be kind of going over all of the encounters and episodes and stuff from the Deadly Dungeon Rising mini-series. We also have joining us today, who just dropped into the chat, Temhr. Welcome to the show, Temhr.
Oh, hello.
How are you? We are streaming the post-mortem.
Gotcha. Awesome.
And my headset died again. Damn it! I'm not going to be able to do this with the headset after all. Temhr. Oh. I know, right? 1 second, guys. I gotta push some audio from a different place into the stream. Temhr is rolling for hotness and gets a nice, comfortable 11.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot. It's been like minutes and I haven't done it.
Okay. I'm going to
13.
run my music out of my speakers here, which might go back into my microphone a little bit, but I'm going to try and keep things low. Okay. So, we are going to just be going over all of the episode stuff, answering any questions that folks might have. I'll just be kind of digging into what my thought process was. Temhr, Travis, Coron, you're all invited to ask questions or comment as we go.
Sure thing.
Okay, I'm going to turn you up a little bit so I can hear you better. But that also runs the risk of it going back into my microphone. So, for those of you watching live on Twitch, feel free to comment in the chat. I'll be mentioning frequent reminders about that, but also those who are watching the video after the fact are more than welcome to post comments on the YouTube videos or drop into the Discord and make some comments there. Yeah, we'll just dig right in. I'm going to start with some of my notes that I was keeping in mind as I was planning this entire mini-series, which was inspired by a couple of things. One, I have a number of ideas for storylines I want to run in this fictional world of the kind of above ground of Deadly Dungeon, of what comes after heroes start to escape the Deadly Dungeon. But I had some other concepts that would not serve themselves well for groups, doing it with groups that I didn't completely trust all of the players on. I also had some extremely experimental ideas I wanted to run, so I wanted to run this kind of mini series as both an opportunity to stream those encounters, but also as a bridge between Deadly Dungeon, the original show, and an upcoming Deadly Dungeon 2, which I'm thinking will be a show that I use as an opportunity to practice some of the new D&D content that comes out next year from the 1 D&D, the like update to 5th edition. Part of the reason I don't want to continue using 5th edition is because I feel like there is so much 5th edition content out there. I've played a lot of D&D 5th edition. I'm not particularly interested in digging into the crunch of that system anymore. But I know that they are trying to balance a lot of really unfair things and bullshit things about 5th edition classes and spells and some other things with 1D&D. So that'll definitely be a good opportunity. Anyway, moving on. So my agenda, as it was when running the original Deadly Dungeon, was to first and foremost be a fan of the players. I wanted to make sure that I was creating cool opportunities for players to have fun, to shine, to make cool decisions and story decisions. So that is always just number one on my agenda whenever I'm playing tabletop. Second, be a dispassionate dungeon, running experiments and trying to kill the player characters. I've discovered I'm really not good at this. And one thing that some of us were talking about after the finale was that 5th edition really doesn't like to kill its players in a way where it feels fair.
Yeah.
Um,
They give you so many tools and things you can use to get a player back on their feet very easily. Like Healing Word, it's a first level spell, and you can do it from a distance, and it's just a done deal. 1 HP, or they're back up, back on their feet, ready to join the fight. There's a lot of that in 5th edition.
yeah.
So to get in a situation where you can't use any of those things, it means that you're failing saving throws. People are getting paralyzed. Like it's you really have to get beat down.
So from just like a game design perspective, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That really the two options are either you TPK or nobody gets removed from the game. I think generally speaking, beyond tabletop, just in general for game design, you don't. Player elimination is what I call a bad mechanic, right? It makes people feel bad and removes them from play, and that's just not, in my opinion, not good for anyone. So I think there is some merit to it, though sometimes it does take away stakes and interesting story.
I completely agree. I even as we'll see with some of the mechanical designs and choices I made, especially for the final bosses, yeah, it can feel really shitty to be like, this is a boss they need to hit really hard for it to feel like the stakes are really high and for decisions to matter. But also, sometimes that means setting like damage values to levels where, oh, I could just instantly take out one of the lower health characters. And that can feel very unearned. Or as another example, oh, I want this to feel like there is a rage timer on it. So I'll have this mechanic where folks are taking damage every turn, but then that sets a really short clock for some characters and a really less short clock for other characters, and everybody's ability to stave that off is completely depending on where they put their stats and can feel really unearned. Stake development. Have any of you lost a player character in a 5th edition campaign that you've ever played?
Yes.
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 How did that go, and how did it feel? Does anyone have an interesting story to tell? Maybe a brief story to tell?
I won't go into details as far as like stories so much because
Right.
it's been such a long time.
But like in terms of mechanics of how the fight or situation developed and whether that felt good or bad or earned or not.
Right. So I'm one of those players that I don't stake a whole lot of value in my characters' lives anymore because it's just so much more fun to just go all in and do the epic cool thing. And if I die, I deserve it because that was so stupid. So our friend Greg that was streaming the Land Beyond the Mists West Marches campaign, I did 3 sessions in that where each time my character died. The feel good death was charging headlong into a chimera to help the rest of my party slay it, even though we were way under leveled to fight something such as a chimera. That felt great because I just charged in, I got breath weaponed, and I got burnt to a crisp, but that was like, it was like kind of on my terms. Like, I knew this was probably not going to work out, but it was fun.
Yeah.
The not feel good ways that my characters have died have been like, the party has to make a judgment call, like, hey, we can save the rest of us, Travis is too far away,
Mm-hmm.
we can't get to him. That doesn't feel very good, but it's not like a fault of the other players. It's just kind of the battle. Every D&D battle becomes chaos, and sometimes that's where the chips land. You're separated, and there's that just a lack of recourse to recover everybody.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel great, but I don't hold anyone at fault for those things. That's the way it goes sometimes. And to some respect, like, it should go that way. That's part of the fiction that we're trying to recreate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, depending on the fiction you're trying to recreate, the level of lethality might be different. I've had a number of 5e deaths. One of them was a level 1 character that just we were fighting a Yeti at level 1, beat the Yeti, and then we fought the 2 Yetis in the back of the cave, and I just got crit and one shot by the Yeti. Which, I mean, we were pushing our luck, but they ended up winning that fight, and I mean, it was a cool fight anyway, and that, I mean, definitely there was like, this is the decision you made, here are the consequences of your decision. For sure there. I've had some TPKs that I don't think TPKs ever feel good.
No.
And then I had one where the enemies chose to attack me while I was down because I had shown myself as a threat and instantly killed me, basically. So, I mean, if that's the sort of lethality of the world that you're trying to build and teach your players to accept, then I guess I understand that, but it also just doesn't feel very good to be stuck there, essentially out of the game for, the foreseeable future.
Yeah, not only is your character dead, but you cannot participate as a player.
Right.
When you've committed time to be there. Yeah. Anyway, so all of this to say, I really struggle to be a dispassionate dungeon and dispassionate monster that is trying to kill the player characters, even in a short story form one shot where it is expected that characters will die. It just doesn't feel good. It feel like D&D is just constructed to feel like the stakes are always lethal combat. There is like that is what is at stake.
I should say my first character death, myself, was on the second episode of Deadly Dungeon.
Oh, that's true.
You killed off my cat. You dropped him in lava.
Yeah. How did that feel, Temhr?
It felt, oh no, my character. But then, I kind of made a joke about him drowning in lava, saying like, "No, you guys can do it," and then burning. Oh my God, this is too painful. I'm worse than I thought.
Yeah.
Like he's going out like a hero, and then he realizes, hey, this really freaking hurts.
I've had a character that a level 1 character first session got killed by rats.
Oh, no.
We're not gonna dwell on that story, but been there. No fun. Okay, moving on. Go ahead.
That actually reminds me, I had a TPK to rats. And we just like ran back like the same characters in the same dungeon. We're just like, no, we're doing a do-over.
That's very
I
funny.
think there's a really interesting conversation to be had here about like game design and death in TTRPGs and how it can be made be felt like still not, obviously it's not going to feel rewarding that your character died, but less bad. That I think we should circle back to at some point.
Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the other stakes I tried to create with some abilities, particularly items or abilities that some of my final bosses had that involved death saves, not marking off health or granting a condition. I always feel like D&D is missing some sort of codified way of creating other stakes, such as like losing equipment through combat, or I mean, they have things like diseases, I guess, but I just feel like that didn't make any sense, or didn't feel like it would have a place in this particular story. So yeah, we can return to that, and I definitely think it is worth talking about in a future conversation.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like, there's not like a sliding scale of like how much you won. Either you won, great, thumbs up, or you lost and you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
The classic fail state is, I was just going to say, the classic fail state is, game over. That's it. You can't play anymore. You're out. So people naturally, it's the first thing they think of, It's like old arcade. Oh, put more quarters in. Game over. You're done, So there's thousands of ways a fail state could happen, millions if your imagination. Rarely do we, investigate that, but it's just we tend towards the, you're out. Your character's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Sit in the sidelines.
It's a lot harder, I think, in one-shots to just have story stakes, right? Because that's the other thing that you do, is you say, oh no, the bad guys are getting away with the MacGuffin, and if you don't get through these guys fast enough, they're going to get away with the MacGuffin and do the thing with the MacGuffin, right? And
yeah,
that's one of the ways that you can structure it to have like a partial victory, with story stakes, but that's a little bit harder in one shots because they're less inclined to be really tuned into the story.
Yes, and I think I did an okay job of that in the first episode of Brotato related content, and I'll get to that, of like using the search for the MacGuffin of that episode as a way to create some stakes, but it didn't quite work out because these were supposed to be only like 4 or 5 hour episodes, and I think in retrospect, all of these sessions would have been better if they were like 8 hours long, and there's a reason I really struggled with that. One of my inspirations for this was a campaign that I played in with a buddy of mine who ran it. It was his first D&D campaign he'd ever played in, and he GM'd it. He's been a GM of other systems for decades, so it's not like he's a new GM. But he created a really great story that we played in person, like once, one session like every other month. So we made like a huge day of it, and they were like 8 hour sessions, and I think that these would have been much better in my the concept was made for each of these was made for a longer form session. Anyway, let's get through the rest of the agenda. Make every episode and session lethal. Everything should come at a reasonable cost or risk to be earned. Nothing should be free. Don't make them roll unless there's a chance of failure. And no instant death mechanics. So yeah. Here in my notes, I had a lot on like, here is where we were coming from with the original Deadly Dungeon, the intro to this particular story and what's going on. I had to do a lot of legwork to create narrative just through exposition. So we could just like jump to the action and not spend a ton of time role playing, since again we were very limited on time. And then I had notes on all of my artifacts, and the fun little naming convention I had for them, like the OTAT orb being Brotato backwards, but also like if you translated that through Google Translate, through a language here, a language there, you would actually get meaningful words and why they were named something.
I love that.
The Bia Washem was the Mecha backwards. Noitas Revnoki was in conversation, which is a fancy way that people that kind of rip off or make nods to other like intellectual property the creative space, they'll just say like, oh yeah, I'm not ripping off of that, I'm just in conversation with the person that made that. Like, oh yeah, I didn't rip off Power Rangers, I'm in conversation about what Power Rangers look like in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. So that's just a cheeky little thing that creative content creators do, and also I plugged that into a name of one of my artifacts. And then the 4th artifact, the one that Death had, was the Esivid Tulp, or plot device backwards. Which is Danish for my knowledge pole.
I think this is probably my favorite, just because it's like this is my I know pole.
This is my I know pole.
It's so good.
It's great. Anyway, so let's move on to the Brotato episode. Let me go ahead and pull that map up. I actually have many maps for this, because I had originally designed this in to have many waves with many turns.
Yeah,
and I
could have made this one a 12-hour session easily.
Yeah, this one would have been very long. And I made a lot of decisions on the fly that resulted in that shortening very quickly. So I had set up every token across multiple maps and rolled their HP using a powerful macro that let me like run their HP separate of one another and set up the token like each one individually, which was really cool. And this was because I did this because I was trying to like resemble Brotato, which has 20 waves, constantly spawning monsters in a bullet hell. In fact, if we look at my notes, at one point I had in my notes like a chart, a spreadsheet of every wave of actual Brotato, when enemies spawn, how many there are per wave, and I was trying to like really represent it like accurately. And then I realized this is way too much. I need to like work on what do the enemies translate to in 5th edition language and context, and then what of that can I make interesting. And I ended up plotting out each individual wave and turn for, I think I had 16 waves. And then I very quickly realized this is not going to work. These turns are taking way too long. So on the fly, reduced that to like the first 4 waves and then the first boss. And then we just like rushed ahead.
Brotato has the benefit of having a timer.
Yeah.
And much faster action, not being turn-based. So the fact that you were able to translate it into 5th edition as well as you did, and it was very entertaining. I watched the whole thing, and I was incredibly impressed. You grabbed all the right things, made everything interesting. And it was a very as good of an adaptation that 5th edition rules, I think, could have really done.
Thank you.
Yeah, out of curiosity, how many waves did you end up running?
Oh God, I think it was just 4 waves, and then the bosses, and then I didn't even do the last boss. Or I skipped a couple bosses. I don't even remember.
It was some like waves, crunch, and then it quickly became realization of like, okay, we just got to go to the bosses because it takes way too long to get there.
Also, it became very clear that so one of the things I was trying to do with this is because I realized, this is very different than Brotato in that just like fighting enemies nonstop over and over and over is going to wear down the players and consume their resources. And so I created these little breakpoints where after each boss, they would get the opportunity to like accumulate rest points, quote unquote, like either take a short rest or build up towards a long rest later. And so that they could feel free to use their resources. But I had understated the monsters because it seemed like they weren't costing, like the waves were not costing the enemy or costing the players resources. It was just time, like as players, our time playing the game. And it didn't seem particularly lethal. And I also, trying to replicate Brotato, created these buffs that they would get through, like as they went, and they just continued to overpower, like get even stronger than what I was throwing at them, which is also fed into the decision to just like skip ahead because the waves were not statted properly to really cost anything except maybe a little health here, a little health there. Yeah.
Hashtag spell burn.
Yeah, the spell burn was ridiculous. Anyway, there were some of the Brotato monsters that I felt really good about. And in fact, I had created lots of like monster stat blocks for many of the enemies, and then I realized, oh, I need to keep this moving along quickly and keep turn time down. I need to make these all like swarms rather than individual units. So I created both like charger and charger swarm stat blocks, and so on and so forth. But it still ended up taking quite a bit of time. I think that there were also some particular mechanics that I created that didn't work very well. Like, I think some of those like big AoEs that they could just use their reaction to move out of the way of. I don't think that those worked very well.
And you even stated in the stream, the idea was like you have the ability to actively move your character all the time in Brotato, so you're trying to recreate the feeling of being able to like time your movement to dodge some attacks, and it just became like an auto avoid when trying to translate 5th edition. It's just you're not going to be able to capture everything, but you tried, and not everything's going to work like that.
I think my particular failure was that a lot of these abilities were save for no damage rather than save for half damage. And that allowed them to completely evade consequences. Maybe they could have used reactions to gain like a +3 or a +5 to their roll. Maybe that would have been better. But because like in emulating Brotato, all of the damage in Brotato is all or nothing. But I was throwing so many of these abilities at them that all or nothing still would have chipped away at them, and maybe that would have been a good thing since I wasn't really costing them a lot of resources. But yeah, like reaction being like this tool that you can use to kind of like have a moment of transcendence of the mechanics, I think was really a cool idea, but I didn't quite flesh it out well enough.
Also, you didn't really do any like trial run sessions.
No, I was spending so
went
much time
all
getting
in on
this
the
stuff
live session.
ready and also starting my new job and
Yeah.
that I just didn't have time for that, and I didn't even bother to do it with myself. So that's why these were highly experimental, because we were trying them out as we were going.
Yeah, there's something to be said about that. Like, to have gotten to this quality without any sort of playtest to gauge how well these things are translating. You just went for it and trusted your gut, and I think it still worked out really well. Like, especially considering you didn't do any sort of trial run or anything like that.
Yeah.
We
was.
won't break.
What's that?
No worry. We won't break. No worries. In my opinion. So.
Yeah.
Fair. I am really proud of the buffs, like the level ups. Those were,
Yeah,
I
that
think,
was so much fun.
I think those were really, really a fun opportunity to like make the players even cooler. And if I had thrown much more challenging stuff at them, those would have been really interesting choices. And I really like that they engaged with different ones as different characters. Like I love that Greg chose the turrets, which were really fun. Yeah.
Turret Chan.
Yes, Turret Chan. I think that some of the other ones I didn't quite think through really well. Like +1 AC is just insane. Spellburn just was ridiculous.
Yeah, there should have been some sort of either cap to Spellburn or some sort of larger investment. Like you had to dedicate 2 levels to get to the next like +1 damage
Yeah.
Spellburn or something like that.
Something like that, yeah. I'd have to think about it more.
But it was really, really fun. Like, how in 5e do you allow your players to level up like multiple times in one session?
Yeah. I think I had also kind of conceptualized that they would get a level up at the end of every wave because I wanted it to be something frequent and fun, something to like look forward to. But again, I think that like waves were taking a really long time. They weren't particularly challenging, and the players were scaling really fast. So maybe those should have come only after a boss, but that's what I had those rests for. And so, yeah, I think that this could have taken a lot more thought. And I would consider this concept to still be in alpha testing.
Yeah.
Do you think then, if this is still in alpha testing, do you think you would run something similar to this again?
If people really wanted me to run this, and maybe compensated me for my time, I would continue to work on this and run it for them. But I've sunk a lot of time into just 4 episodes of this show and this particular content, and it's still like I'm ready to move on with other creative projects.
Gotcha. Understood.
Yeah.
So I'm not itching to continue working on this for myself.
Totally fair. You put a lot into it, man.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't feel like the need to get into the crunch of each particular character or boss here unless anyone was like really interested in one of them.
What about the boss that you didn't get to?
Oh,
What would've happened?
yeah. So in my notes here, okay. So there was, hang on. There were actually several bosses we didn't get to. So there was the Croc boss. There was Mother. I think we did Mother. We had, I think we didn't do Invoker or Predator, right? The 2 final bosses of Brotato? Or did we?
I don't recall seeing those.
Mother, Monk. Oh no, I don't think we did Monk. I think Monk is the one we skipped.
Okay.
So Monk is a creature in Brotato that spawns a shit. Oh no, we did do Monk. That was the one that spawned all the slasher eggs.
Oh yeah.
So Monk was originally supposed to spawn like 2 slasher eggs every turn, and slasher eggs, by the way I had designed them, had a lot more health. But on the fly I decided it would be real, like I clearly statted it wrong and they weren't going to be able to kill any eggs or really many at all, particularly for the Monk boss, which spawned 15 right up front. So I basically doubled the player's damage against them. to give them the opportunity to actually kill them. Or I made them, I think I was just like, these really should just have barely double-digit health. So basically, if they hit it, I would kill it. There were a couple like low rolls from Greg that I think I didn't kill a slasher egg on. But rather than having like 30 or 40 health, I was like, oh god, they're gonna die if all of these hatch, and this mission will go on forever. So I think that was an example of like some on-the-fly adjustment I did. I think we did do all of these bosses, but I had 2 other bosses, Shiva and Yojimbo, which are from Final Fantasy. I'm actually going to keep them hidden because I think I will use them in future Deadly Dungeon content.
Sweet.
But these were characters that I found some creatures that I was really excited about. And I realized after I had kind of designed this whole like, hey, everybody, Death wants these artifacts. This one group of alien weird dudes has one. You're going to have to go prove yourselves to them. They basically, the way I conceptualize them is they're just like really, really bored. And so they decided to fuck with anyone that came and visited them. Hence why one of them pretended to be a king. This King Temhr, which is Russet backwards, I envisioned him as someone who was just acting as a king and in fact was not a king. I think I just let it stuck though for simplicity's sake. And the original concept was that they'd be like, hey, we're really bored. Can you just entertain us for a little bit and we'll give you what you ask for? But then the whole idea of like, well, yeah, we don't really want this artifact. It's a lot of trouble. We'll give it to you if you can prove that like you can hold on to it and Death won't take it from you. Which is exactly what ended up happening, kind of. Yeah. Anyway, so the plan was that once this humongous gauntlet was beaten and y'all got the artifact, that like kick you while you're down, 2 of Death's minions would show up and try and steal it from you. Or at least the party that got the artifact. And so I had plans for just one enemy to show up, and I didn't really know who that was going to be. And then as I planned Yojimbo, I was like, ooh, what if there's another one? Because 1v4, come on. But the idea was that the effects of those buffs wouldn't have worn off yet. So the party would still have access to those, and I made these minions, these like mini bosses, really tough. Probably even stronger than the bosses of the Brotato gauntlet. So I'm excited to see those in the future and use them. So I will keep those close to my chest for now.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that.
Okay. This is the original... Oh, I deleted a lot of it. But this is the original layout of the Brotato episode. It was going to be in a rectangular arena, a lot like that of actual Brotato. But as I was like kind of setting everything up, I already had so many monster tokens that even my computer, which is relatively new and high quality components, the computer and software are struggling to process it. So I switched to running on a single map with one art asset rather than a bunch of tiles put together. So this is kind of like
yeah, I could see how that would have been a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to the Siege of Ujak. None of you were in this one, were you?
I mean, yeah.
I don't think.
Oh, yeah,
anyone
Coron
in
was.
The Rotato one, but I was
Yeah.
in the Siege.
That's
Yeah,
right.
The two of us were both in this one.
Oh, okay, great.
Yep.
Sorry, my brain is farting. So here's the actual map that we ended up using. Let me go over here really fast. Yeah, so this is what it originally looked like, where I had found these like empty looking bubble art assets, and I was putting health bars all over the map and was gonna like,
my God.
yeah, and then I realized that was going to be a lot of macro management, and similar to the Brotato thing, it was a lot of our assets on one map. So I was like, nope, not going to do that. I'm going to switch over to like having rubble, and I'll just pale out the map after like revealing it. Like we can see the urban density of everything. We can see the map, and then I'm going to like, as the battle progresses and I start laying down rubble, I'll make it very clear where the rubble is, because the art asset I had for rubble really blended in with the map. So I was like, I need to make the map like a pale background. Also to make it easy to see where the monster, like where our characters are, which is why I gave them the like yellow aura, so that they and the red aura for the bad guys. So it was very obvious where they were on the map.
Yeah, I think he did a fantastic job with that, and I really liked the rubble. Like it's why make it complicated, right? You just plink the rubble down where the damage was done, and we have a visual representation of how much of the city is getting effed up by these giant mechas, and we have that sense of urgency. Like there's people dying here. There's stuff being completely trashed here.
And so I codified and kind of set the stakes for why it matters whether or not the city survives by saying like, the more that you all can help, the more the city will be prepared to support you in your final fight with death, which is what resulted in lots of magic item options for you all to add at the very end. One thing we didn't talk about with the Brotato episode was that I tasked them with finding the secret hidden layer in the cliffs of where the spectators were, and that was supposed to feed into when the villains, those last two bosses, Yojimba and Shiva, like, do they show up while you're down? Do they show up after you've had time to rest and recover? Like, do you do it so fast that they don't even show up? And it actually turned out that they did move very quickly to find the location of the spectators. So it worked out that the enemies didn't show up until like it was too late. But anyway, those were some kind of minor stakes that I tried to throw in there that gave us opportunity to have kind of smaller obstacles or sub missions that felt interesting. Besides, like, kill the enemy. But this was also, like, kill the enemy and don't cause damage to the city yourself, and don't let them destroy too much of the city themselves.
Yeah, which I totally lost track of the radius for the psychic ability of the kaiju I picked. I totally did not consider that there's just a lot of people in that radius.
Well, what you gonna do?
Yeah, they'll repopulate.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun creating these monsters or just modifying them. I found a lot of extremely high CR creatures that I found really interesting. Spending time thinking about like what would be a cool creature to have in, Godzilla, or let me like one for one like King Kong or Godzilla. So like Sultan Simeon, who we didn't even see, this was King Kong. And he was like a giant ape that I escalated the stats of, and he had some really fun abilities where he could leap from point to point, like from specific spots, like where these red towers were that John put on this map. He could jump from those and get huge distance, like huge movement.
That's awesome.
Because
Sultan Simeon was going to be my next kaiju if my first one died.
Nice.
Like I had him kind of bookmarked.
Yeah. Coron got to play which one was it? Quisha, Guardian of the Wind, who I wanted there to be like some sort of giant, and I found this one, which I think is just like a storm giant, basically. Yeah. And
Storm or Cloud, I forget which.
Or Cloud Giant, maybe. But yeah, they were the one that was like gonna be able to move around quickly and be pretty much safe, and give you all a tool to be able to just like do consistent damage, but they just didn't have the ability to do a lot of damage like some of the other ones that could high roll a lot of damage. So how was playing that one, Corin?
I liked it. I think it was a really good way to handle some of the incredibly high ACs, like the
Definitely.
Undead Tarask had like, what was its AC?
I believe its starting AC was, if we look at the character sheet here, 27.
Right. So even if you're a big Mecha Godzilla, that's a lot of AC, right? You're gonna miss a lot.
Yep.
So just being able to say no, I just deal damage, is incredibly powerful. And being able to do so from half a city away.
Yeah.
Was it was nice. I think the big downside was there wasn't a lot of hit points. So if you got in there, you had to have a way of getting out, which she kind of did, right? She could just turn into mist next time to get a legendary action. But yeah, I mean, it's still a little tricky.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
if you picked a different kaiju, like I just feel like you picked that kaiju had to make an appearance because of how well it was at being involved in both kind of combats. Because the mechs that we were fighting, they're across the city from each other, so us to trudge over and get involved with the other conflict, it would have taken a lot more time, whereas you just had that range to pepper the Tarask a bit and then pepper the Kraken a bit. You could go back and forth a lot easier.
When Charlie got in the tree and was like, I'll be there in 20 turns.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, no.
I should have realized how slow I had made that one and just like told him, dude, that one is not going to be effective. Don't do it. But y'all had been so creative with some of the ways that you were handling the enemies that I didn't want to say like don't do that, because it could turn into something really interesting.
Something that, yeah.
So one thing, I don't know if you realized this, Nick, until we got control of the tokens, we didn't even really get to see what each of the mechs was gonna do. Yeah,
that really sucked, because I thought I had completely shared the their entire character sheet of them with you and given you the opportunity to start thinking about it, but I fucked up and that was not the case.
Yeah, so we just had their bio and info page, which sometimes had misleading information on it.
Right, because
I think it was like the default.
Because you started with something else, yeah, and then a bunch of changes.
Exactly.
So we would get into it and be like, oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I didn't. When I got into my kaiju, I didn't really know which things were gonna be the things to do, and I mean, I think I latched on to like a good, oh, I can snipe from halfway across the city. That's great. But maybe like the maybe, I don't know, maybe the like using that legendary action to just do sword attacks and then disappear would be pretty good too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Didn't have much. I mean, obviously I did have a lot of time between turns to think about it because a million legendary actions, but
it was so silly.
Yeah.
And so amazing. Like I love how chaotic it got because we all had legendary actions we could take on other creatures' turns.
Yeah. I wanted to
blast.
share what that experience is like, especially since these are such high CR creatures, but it did kind of turn into a madhouse.
Would not have had it any other way.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah.
I also really love the fact that the kind of the biggest, baddest mech, the biggest threat that we had, that Tarask, kicked off the combat and endured like almost the entire thing while we're fighting other mechs, and those mechs are falling, but this Tarask is still going. It was still like such a slog to beat it down, and it was very good as a device for continuing tension. Like, are we going to be able to actually bring this thing down?
Right.
And I just love that we kicked off with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole point, like, the Necromancer's plan, from my perspective, was distract the city, cause chaos, pull all defenses away from where this artifact is that is our true goal, and regardless of whether the Warforged Tarask and Kraken win, we're just going to come in a little late once and you know, just fly in and on this dragon that isn't even, that's basically just supposed to get us there. It's a form of transportation, and get to the temple where we can take it. Now, a couple of things surprised me that I didn't plan for, and that was that y'all were gonna teleport on top of the dragon, which was incredible. And actually, because of the time constraint of the episodes and your guys' like availability, worked out really well for streamlining the story to like get to a head much more quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it felt good as a player to call that out. Wait, this is probably a distraction. There's probably something else going. I look and see what's coming next.
Yeah. Well, and it was
Felt
super
pretty good.
convenient that you were in the, like, one of, what, 2 flying guardians, because you were able to see what was happening, being that, a Kraken showed up on the opposite side, and then later that the most important part, which was the dragon.
Yep.
That was so good that we didn't notice the Kraken until I had a couple of
You were
turns.
just causing havoc over there, breaking things, and we just didn't notice.
Well, that one wasn't even supposed to show up until later. I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna roll a d20 every turn to see, you know, how quickly does it show up. On a 20, it shows up, and I rolled it like on the second or third roll. So I just started, like, I kept it hidden on the GM layer, but I started adding like rubble, I think also on the GM layer, just to track where it was going each turn and how much damage it was doing. And so that I could, like, pull away the curtain at some point and be like, yeah, this is also happening, or, you know, a new challenger has appeared. And then I was just going to wait for, like, the perfect time that you all were distracted to bring in the dragon. But I feel like I also wanted the fight to progress far enough that it was fun and interesting and mattered.
Yeah.
So I think I missed my perfect timing, and I forgot about the dragon and the Necromancer showing up until you all basically had dealt with the Kraken. So I might have, for a longer session, I might have missed the good timing, but it all worked out perfectly, I think, for not the initial concept and plan, but for what it needed to be to last the right amount of
pacing
time.
felt really good throughout the entire thing. Like it wasn't bearing down on the Tarrasque. There were a couple of points where it's just like, man, this is like not gonna happen. Like we're just not gonna be able to do this. But other than that, the pacing, it was dramatic through and through.
Yeah,
That's hard to do with such a high concept thing like this, and especially a map this gigantic.
yeah. Yeah, it was a bit of a strain dealing with a map this big, but I wanted it to feel authentic, for it to be honest in terms of like the size of these monsters, and for it to feel like, yes, these are huge, powerful creatures, but they're also like, this city is huge. And speed and like being able to get there quickly versus like creating destruction yourself as a monster. It was something that I had conceived of really early on in terms of like, ooh, yeah, I want their connection to their guardian to feel tenuous. And if they don't act in line with the goals of these guardians, that it can become difficult to operate them. But then y'all were just like, yep, we're just taking the roads. It's not a big deal. Because I expected there to be more, like, destruction caused by the player characters.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, one, there were a lot of roads on the map, and two, it just wasn't that chaotic of a fight, right? There were just like 2 to 3 big enemies to fight, so there wasn't a lot of like, oh, I need to move 2 roads down, but if I go back to the last intersection, I can't really get there sort of moments, right?
Right.
If they had more like transportation options for the mechs, like if they could jump around, kind of like that your King Kong analog could.
Sultan Simeon.
That would have been the thing, I think, to like make us face the fact that either we cause some destruction to the city, or they're just going to cause a whole heck of a lot more of it. Because we kept them isolated to their areas the entire time.
Yeah,
Like,
they didn't make it very far.
Yeah. But if they had some sort of ability where they could just leap like over us or something, or
Right.
a couple blocks over, that's what would have caused us to have to face that decision.
Yeah, I think a lot of these attacks should have caused more knockback, and that could have been like knockback into buildings, and then being able to continue moving and face differently for those like AoE breath attacks to cause more damage. All could have been a lot more interesting storytelling.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it just turned out that Kometa Meadow is the MVP in terms of like killing people, and but yeah, I thought it was
civilians and mechas alike.
Yeah. So yeah, I started with just like some really like, okay, I want to do a Godzilla, I want to do a King Kong, I want to do a massive like kaiju gelatinous cube through the Ichor of Ujiak, which ended up being one of the MVPs.
Yeah, that thing was so fun. It was so cool.
And then I just started looking through the monster manual at really high CR monsters. I found, Astral Dreadnought, which I have never played. I found like a Phoenix, which was really interesting. I wanted there to be like a plant one. So I just looked at some of the plant monsters. And really, for the rest of these, I just found other really cool monsters and just scaled them way up. In terms of like their stats and some of their ability, and like granting them other abilities that other high CR monsters had. Yeah. So that was really fun. Now, what you didn't see is that I actually had a whole other encounter planned in the streets. And it was kind of tied to the whole notion of, like, syncing with your mechs and proving that you are worthy of piloting them. And that was, hey, along the way back to the temple, y'all run into some iron golems that are killing people, killing guards, killing civilians, and giving you a choice. Do you stop to fight these iron golems or not? And there was going to be like a penalty to sync rolls if you didn't, or maybe I was going to give you like a boon to your sync rolls if you did. But also and that would also kind of like make it more real that there's all these other like small forces in the city that really as a mech aren't your problem, but they're definitely there. And so it was just going to be another encounter that kind of set up some additional stakes that would pay off later. And also an opportunity to kind of whittle down your player character's resources before that final fight against the Necromancer himself. But time was once again not on my side for how long we had to run the episode. I think, again, if we had a longer period of time, this would have been really fun and interesting, especially since this entire map has dynamic lighting set up. And so, like, turning corners in this busy street to see really powerful constructs would have been really fun. And also having the guards on your side that I would be playing as and seeing how many of them can you protect so that you can leverage more damage against these really high CR monsters would have been fun. So like here we have
that would have been really cool.
Street view.
That could have easily eaten up like half the available time on its own, though.
Oh yeah, most certainly. So I'm glad I didn't do it with how much time we did have, but it also was just another instance of me way over planning and not being a good judge of time.
I think one shots are really hard.
They really are.
Just like, unless you've got people who are willing to dedicate like a whole day to doing a one shot, like you can only it's such a small cap tool for what you're trying to do. If you're getting any combat in, right? We had 2, arguably 3 combat encounters, right? And that took the whole 5 hours or whatever, right?
Right. Indeed. The final encounter with the Necromancer, he ended up being kind of a chump. Y'all handled him pretty easily. The plan was for more mechs to come up behind you guys.
I was worried about that.
As the fight progressed. The very early stage of this had like mechs that created like walls of force. And you would like kind of imagine like the Battle of the Fates, like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan versus Darth Maul, where there's like stages you had to work your way through and kill enemies.
Like we're getting sectioned off.
Yeah, and the Necromancer would be like would have a clock to work through the attunement to the Bio Washem, and but we ran out of time, so while the episode was running I was like deleting stuff and rearranging this map. So I was like, I still need him to feel like he's a necromancer of mechs, so I had him like reanimate some mechs for you guys to fight, which didn't take a lot of time because they were really pathetic. And I think they almost got one of you.
Up perfectly in lightning bolt pattern.
Yeah, what it was Garvin that dealt with those, right?
No.
Or Zod.
I think it was
Soul.
Zod, yeah.
Yeah, because Soul, I think he backed out of the mech fight really early, so I wanted to make sure that he had some screen time, and it also made sense that his character had run ahead of you all. So I wanted to up the stakes and kind of have him fight some stuff while you all were catching up.
Yeah, it worked out perfect.
Yeah. But y'all did so much damage to him ahead of him landing. He also had some scrolls of like teleportation that were his like plan to get in quickly off of the dragon, which was then going to just circle above and wait for him to get the artifact so he could bug out. But y'all dealt with the dragon so well that he didn't really have an escape plan. Yeah.
I just knew that you would go for it. Like, you're very much a rule of cool DM. So teleporting to the back of that dragon, that was just so fun. It was so cool. I only asked like the rest of the group, like, should I do it? Because we were working as a team with like a common objective, and I know like we wanted to win. And what I was about to do was likely gonna just like kill my kaiju off.
Yeah.
And kind of count against us. So just the idea of like I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna teleport to the back, but I want to set a like expectation. If I fail my grapple check or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna fall.
And you're right. Like, I am a very rule of cool DM, so I wanted to honor this amazing idea. I was also shocked because I was trying to reconcile, like, this could go very bad for my final encounter and the like cool shit I had planned, but this is also like such a cool idea. I don't want to like diss it. So and as always, when stakes are really high in terms of like how wrong things could go, I try to slow things down and lay it all out and be like, this is what could happen. Are you still sure that you want to proceed, or like, can we negotiate like what this will mean for your character if you choose to do this? And just be really upfront about like where I think this will head if it goes right or wrong. Because I don't want people to follow through on an idea when I'm not on board with where it could go. So that's why I kind of like show my hand in moments like that. Because I wanted it to be very clear, like, I'm going to treat this as fall damage for your character, which actually turned out to not be very much. In terms of how much health your Astral Dreadnought had when he did inevitably fall. But I also think he was at a lower altitude by that point. I don't recall.
Yeah, we were like both falling together for a bit, and then I got kicked off.
Yeah. But yeah, the Necromancer had to burn a lot of spells. He lost a lot of health. He lost his ride.
Yeah.
I
was imagining if the dragon made it to the temple, there was gonna be like breath fire, like breath weapon actions and stuff like that to kind of be a big help for that Necromancer.
Yeah. In retrospect, that's probably what he should have done, but I found this cool throne room map and wanted to use it. So
no, it was too perfect. It's absolutely what a wizard would do.
Yeah.
Of his level, he has access to a teleport scroll or whatever. Yeah, you're gonna use it. There's no way you're not gonna use it.
Let's
to just bamf out of that situation.
Yeah, so Warforged, Tarask, I think we saw just about everything he had access to. I didn't use the Eldritch Turrets as much as I thought I would, or the Incinerating Beam. John hard countered me with Godzilla that was immune to this damage. And I think if I weren't having my ass beat so bad, I would have definitely allowed him to, like, soak up the radiant damage as, you know,
Go into Meltdown Godzilla.
Yeah, exactly. There was some fear mechanics, but none of your kaiju were afraid of him. I think if you as player characters had stuck around to try and fight these on the ground, you would have had to deal with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have died instantly.
Yeah, for sure. So I think you all made really wise choices. And in retrospect, I think I ate up a lot of time having you all like run back.
I'm really glad for it though, because that was a good source of drama. The oh crap, we gotta get back to the kaiju, because what would of our characters have like fully known was gonna happen right off the bat like that? I don't think we were prepared for Mecha Terras to just come bolting straight out of there immediately and start wrecking the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mecha Tarrasque versus Hasted Godzilla. Who will win?
That haste. Oh my god.
And that's what gave us the opportunity to cast haste on Godzilla.
Yes. That was incredible.
Because we were on the way back to the temple that Zod. It was Zod that cast it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it all worked out very well. I think I got worried because it might not have in the end, and it did eat up a lot of time. I think a more experienced GM would have understood how much time that was going to take up front and had a plan for it. A plan for dealing with it, and
I don't think it took that much time once we realized, oh hey, we just take all those people out of initiative and then run Godzilla versus
yeah.
Mecha Tarrasque.
I think what I meant, maybe not, it wasn't time. I think what it meant was that there were several players not doing anything for an amount of time while we ran like John versus Nick. And that didn't feel good, and I'm like a nervous, anxious DM who's like, oh, do the players hate me because of the way this is working out and my poor planning? So that's just where my head was at, and why I try and
Speaking
pivot.
for myself, it's really difficult to put me in a position where I don't like what's going on just because my character's not acting. Like I treat it like a movie.
Yeah.
At that point, like I'm not doing anything right now. I can't do anything right now. But oh my god, this is dramatic. We've got Godzilla versus Mecha Godzilla right now. This is awesome.
That's fair.
That's where my mind goes.
That's fair. But I guess I recognize that I had asked for your time to be available for this, whereas you could have just been a viewer sitting on like your computer doing whatever else you want while watching the show. As a viewer, I just want to make sure that your time is worth it and respected.
Yeah, I appreciate that you think that way. I think in the end, the big thing is that everybody, I feel like everybody got to do a cool thing and got to feel like they were included in this session. I mean, I don't think there was... the ooze just absolutely demolishing the armor of the thing, that was super freaking
so
awesome.
Good. Like, how good is that? An ability to reduce AC by 1? Like...
Yeah, obviously the Godzilla versus Mecha Tarrasque war, I got to have the killing blow on that, and that was pretty cool. And then just you basically soloed one of the mechas on your own, right?
Yeah, the Kraken.
Yeah, I mean, I helped, but...
Yeah, you definitely helped. You were peppering it with arrows from afar, which that's exactly what your kaiju was meant to do. Until you got into like the legendary stuff.
And you got to jump on the back of a dragon. So I feel like everybody got their cool moments, and that's what I care about most. Like, if we had showed up and somebody felt like they couldn't just do anything the whole session, maybe that could have felt bad, but like that isn't the way it worked out.
Yeah.
I like the little buddy system we had where I'm a halfling, so I move extra slow, but you summon a direwolf, and I was like, hey, when it comes down to it, can I hitch a ride?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of the reason I gave the Ichor of Ujiak that like like taking down AC is because there's several oozes that like have corrode metal and can create penalties to damage rolls, but then there's also some that like eat at armor. Oh, it's their
totally
pseudopod attack. Yeah. The armor is partly corroded and takes a permanent minus to AC. Yeah, so I felt like that was a really useful tool of the Ichor, but I also wanted it to be able to like do its classic splitting, which would give it better action economy, but also make it far less likely to hit, and much more damageable. So
yeah, I mean, I think you really saw that play out in the episode too. I think the design on that ended up really coming through and like showing exactly, I think, what you wanted it to, right? Of the like it splits and splits and splits, but then it just got demolished by, you know, a stomp or whatever. I don't remember what the AoE thing was. That
yeah,
Mecha got Tarask was doing, but
yeah, I think Charlie did a great job with that. And one thing I did not expect is that he's just like, I'm gonna hang up the call now and disconnect from my mech, or not mech, but my guardian. I had not planned for that, and I don't know why. I think I had just imagined like, yeah, you all won't. And maybe what I should have done is like, if there is an active threat nearby, your guardian will not let you leave. Or like you're so wrapped up in their psyche that you can't
find a way out.
You can't imagine just disengaging. Maybe that's what I should have done, is like you and this guardian are one and the same. Retreat is not an option.
I don't know if that, I mean, I think that would have felt bad, probably, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, especially with the
Give me
ooze.
resistance.
Just like, I'm this one smallest size ooze, and I have to stick around and slap him with a pseudopod this turn. I think that would feel pretty bad.
See, I think I would have, if I had codified that, I would have given the ooze an exception because it is a plural being. And, you know, kind of hive mind. And one of those minds being separate is natural to it. So disconnecting, there would have not been a penalty to that, or a codified. I think that might have been my one exception. But if you're like, if you are, I don't know, we see it in like Attack on Titan. When Eren goes into Titan form and he's fighting, he is not thinking clearly. Because he is of the mind of a Titan.
It takes a lot of like training to get him to the point where he can.
Exactly.
While Titan.
Yeah. So
I didn't see all of the mechs. It's also possible that you end up in a situation where your mech is just not at all suited for dealing with the challenge that you're currently fighting, and then that could suck.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would agree to like. It makes sense to give like a resistance. It's difficult to pull yourself from this Titan.
Sure.
So make it like either some sort of a check, or something that it takes like one extra round than expected to do, or something like that. Just a little bit, so that way you're not stuck there. But
yeah,
it's just a little hitch.
I think these are all good ideas and definitely worth consideration if that were to be a codified mechanic.
Yeah.
Looking at the Necromancer, I think I used most of his abilities, like his multi-attack. No one died, so I didn't use his Grim Harvest. That would have, like, Necromancers have that, and they can, like, get health back when they kill things.
I thought I was so dead.
Yeah, I had hoped so. We used his Summon Undead Constructs. I think he used his Protection. I think I used his Vulcan Strike, which was a legendary action. Maybe I didn't. I think there were specific times I just forgot to use legendary actions, and then there were specific times where I chose not to use them, especially when it was like just Charlie versus the Necromancer.
Yeah.
Because I, again, didn't want to feel like it was an unfair fight. But he had some spells... Like, oh, he had Scrolls of Dimension Door. He also had Staggering Smite, which does a huge amount of extra damage.
Ooh, yeah.
He used Wall of Force. That's what he was using to, like, block himself off. And then I think I did use Destructive Wave. I think that's what I hit you all with at the very end. That almost took someone out.
Yeah, I think it one.
Yeah. I remember I was kind of low too, and I was just like, he's super low as well. Just go in and smack him, and he'll for sure die. And it was closer than I thought it was gonna be on him dying. But,
yeah, I think the way I had kind of planned it was like, no matter when you all show up, he is killing that second cardinal, and then starting the process of attuning. I think if y'all hadn't done all the damage that you did, I would have been having other mechs show up to stop you and buy him time. That was my original plan, but because we were running so late, I didn't have many mechs show up, which is why it was weird when he just like was standing there taking attacks. And I was like, this is too strange. He really should just take this and fight you. And I think I made a bad design choice. But also, if he hadn't had lost so much health, I think this could have definitely gone the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a huge play to just jump on the back of the dragon and draw him out so he could lightning bolt his ass.
Yeah, that was awesome. I'm so glad that we got to do some damage to him before actually starting this last encounter.
100%.
It made it so much more dramatic, and like higher stakes for him means he's going to do crazier, wilder things, so that makes it higher stakes for us. It's just good drama. I gotta say, your plan to toss me over the Wall of Force, I totally had no idea what was happening there. You just said, Garvin, are you ready? And me, like, loving improv, of course I'm going to say yes. And then he threw me over the wall, and I was like, I might die.
I didn't have any other solution to the problem. Nobody else.
Yeah, but I was all for it, man. I loved that. I was like, this is probably going to be bad for Garvin, but hey, this is cool.
I'm in danger.
I love throwing problems at players, and I'm just like, I don't know how y'all are going to solve this. I can't think of a single way. Go.
Yeah.
Because y'all figure it out, and it's great, and that's just why I trusted you all. I will point out, I don't know if I used this, but the Warforged Dragon had Necrotic Flame Breath.
I did not use that.
I didn't.
I was like waiting for some sort of breath thing to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that was one ability I didn't end up using.
It's because we just changed cameras to inside the temple.
Right.
I feel like that still happened off screen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, maybe.
So we left that fight still kind of ongoing, with the Phoenix attacking it, and another mech or another kaiju like on the edge of the cliff.
Yeah.
Waiting for it.
So just so you know, King Kong and Godzilla, those kaiju were CR25s. The Astral Dreadnought was a CR21. The Ichor and Tree were 17 and 18, and then the Phoenix and Storm Giant were just CR16. I think there was another one, the like bull statue. I must have missed statting out their CR. But I gave you guys a wide range of CRs to use. And who knew the CR18 was the MVP?
Right.
And the CR21 would be the MVP. Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's CR is a lie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's
So
true.
There's some
Definitely
things
a lie.
about CR about like your 2 hits and your HP and your AC and your saves, and in the end, what matters more is what you can do. And
Right.
even your CR doesn't necessarily apply that much to the damage you can do. Like you saw when I finally got in there with the sword, like with the CR 16, I did 100 points of damage in a round, right? Like,
Yes.
Yeah, it was insane.
like yeah, probably on average the CR 25 Godzilla stat block is gonna do more, but like it's not that much more, right? So it's all about like what you're able to do, and I think Keisha had like a lot going for them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, her wind javelin was only doing on average 19 damage. And then, yeah, once you got in there with the sword, those hit for 40 damage if you hit.
Yeah.
But Keisha is like super squishy. So I think you played them perfectly.
Yeah. You brought them into melee when they needed to go into melee and lay down more damage.
For the kill shot.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm ready to move on to the brain changer episode. Was there anything else anyone wanted to add on the Siege of the Necromancer?
Just that it was everything I could have hoped for in a like tear down of 5th edition mechanics, kit bash into a kaiju fight.
Yeah. So Coron, because of my color filter I have on our cameras, you're kind of bleeding through, which is perfect.
It's beautiful.
I love it.
My hair is getting caught in the filter.
Heck yeah. All right. Let's move on to Brain Changer, which Temhr was a part of. Ooh, wait, I have 2 maps here. Which was which? Oh, I had...
Not that one.
No, so these were maps I considered using because of how big the one we ended up using was, but I was messing around with these and I was like, no, you know what? I'm gonna stick with the original. I already have it made up. We'll just go with it even. And I started to think that it was too big when I realized how many time problems we were having, and I didn't want you all to spend a ton of time like sneaking around, but we moved quickly through a lot of that. Anyway, here's the whole map. It was kind of gross, and there were a lot of rooms, but we kind of made it work, especially because of the homunculus. Ada, it ended up working quite well.
I thought it worked perfectly fine. I mean, you know, everything happened in good succession. We moved on. It was trudged a bit when we were just looking for stuff, but you know, it's all good.
Yeah. So there was a huge amount of nods towards Game Changer, the TV show on Dropout TV. Smash is a character, one of the assistants on that show. Her name is Ash, and she is responsible for bringing out a lot of the props. So that there was a nod to her. There's also this room up here that we kind of talked about at the very end. There was supposed to be an orb in here where the Mind Slayer would talk with Death. And they did end up communicating the secrets that you all shared there. I think that this is actually a good time to take a break, both so I can take my puppy out, who is fussing at me, but also it looks like Rumbleroar's here, and he might want to jump in the call and join us. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more of the Deadly Dungeon Rising Postmortem. We are back with Deadly Dungeon Rising, the Postmortem. Joining us is Rumbleroar. Hello, buddy.
Hello. How the fuck did we survive?
That's a great question. Especially, I think I have a couple of ideas. One, you all didn't get subject to all of the games I had planned, which we will talk about. The other thing is
My homunculus.
well,
which just happened to
that
win
certainly
the entire
helped.
episode.
That certainly helped. I think I might have pulled my punches a little bit with the Mind Slayer. He had many abilities that I did not
Oh
use.
Jesus! Apollo casts wall of text on the entire stream.
Yeah, like Crown of Madness to charm one of you. I did roll really poorly on Mind Blasts. Or no, I didn't even get to Mind Blast you all.
No.
Because my homunculus was
Yeah.
attached to the Mind Flayer's face.
Yeah,
I did one. Maybe I'm remembering.
No, I
wrong.
did, but then we retconned it because we missed a
Oh,
turn
right.
or something like
That's
that.
right.
Someone played my
homunculus
character better than I did and reminded me that I had a prepared action.
That's right. And I felt like it was cheap to not honor that.
And I allowed it because it saved our entire party.
I'll also add that Temhr was also MVP for stunning the one enemy I had. I should have like run up behind you guys with some intellect devourers. That was very foolish of me not to. I mean,
Even if you split the party, I still would have went for that Mind Flayer to stun. The sad thing is that you got us all before we even moved, and so we were like, all right, 1 minute, we're gone. I guess the game is over. But then the retcon happened.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
it
you get
saved
to
us.
save a turn against it, so it's
yeah.
brutal, but it's not like you're gone for a minute, right? It's you get to save against it each turn,
There's that, yes.
Yeah.
so there's a chance.
They also had a bunch of spells. So the Mind Slayer is in fact an Alhoon that I upgraded. An Alhoon being an sort of undead wizard mind flayer. So they had a bunch of other stuff like Dissonant Whispers, Telekinesis, Vampiric Touch that I did not use.
Not to mention an artifact that literally counterspelled everything.
Yeah, I didn't use that as much as I probably should have.
You didn't really have a whole lot cast on you. I'm
I-
pretty sure it was just my magic missiles, right?
I also realized after the fact that I neglected to double his health.
Oh, well.
Which
I mean, we did
That
kick
would've
the
went
shit out of him.
differently.
that's
We
true.
did kick the shit
I
out of
don't
him
know if
kinda
it would have
quickly.
mattered. Honestly, because of the stun, I don't know if it would have mattered. I think you all like earned that victory. And it would have felt bad for him to like become unstunned and then blast you. That would have felt really shitty. I think y'all did a good job. I think we could look at this map and we could talk about the monsters. We could talk about blah, blah, blah. I think what's most interesting, though, is talking about the games.
I agree.
The brain changer stuff. So here's all my information on the game itself. I had info here on exhaustion. But here's the games. So we had Lie Detector, which was answer a question correct, you get a point. Give a wrong answer or refuse to answer, take 1 damage. Get caught in a lie, take 3 damage. And this was just to introduce us to the concept of like these games and what they're going to do to the players. The questions I ended up asking I thought were going to be a lot more clever and interesting. They ended up not really being very interesting. I think I could have done more planning with those questions that I asked of you all.
Was that just off the cuff then? You didn't have them prepared at all?
I had a list. I just think that they were a list of poor questions.
Oh, I see.
Like what's
It's
your
hard with us coming in with characters that may not have existed before.
Yeah. I
With
think
like, what's
Yeah.
your greatest strength? Well, I'm gonna make that up because this
Yeah.
character's new.
yeah. Yeah, I think I could have taken this a different direction that might have been more fun and interesting, especially with some of the improv, which got really fun when we got to the game Make Some Noise, which was make noise that corresponds with a prompt for a point. The most points wins, which was very simple. I had some other prompts here that we didn't get to because it was taking a long time. Like a bard practicing their vicious mockery lines in front of a mirror. A rogue's inner dialogue while silently transcending humanoid limits of acrobatic feat. I also had some where you all would pair up and like take different shots at a prompt, and whichever one I liked the most would win. Planar fitness employees explaining why verbal components of spells are problematic. That one is way above, I think, most people's heads. Planet Fitness is a gym where they don't like it when people grunt or make noise when they do their reps and stuff. So I don't know if that one would have gone well. A druid flirting with an animal he just met. Just the two worst city guards. A lord and lady of Waterdeep discuss their wealth and success. A small business couple whose store was just fireballed. A party member who's really just two kobolds in a trench coat.
I think they did that.
You did that, yeah.
Oh, did I?
Got one. Yeah.
I think I did that as just one person though, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
This absolutely is something that you should
Make an
I
actual show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is absolutely worth a second run.
Okay.
At least.
I can absolutely do that. I'll have to think of a lot more prompts, but yeah.
If you like
Maybe
this
make
sort of
this like
thing,
its own little format.
dropout.tv.
Yes, subscribe. They're
More
just
or less this stuff.
yeah.
But it's not D&D themed.
You can also
right?
find them on YouTube. They post like basically all of the clips from their episode minus some parts. Yeah, there's lots of episodes on YouTube. Okay. So we went to a commercial break, I think because I needed one. But I really in retrospect should have done the next game that I had planned before the commercial break, because this was going to be, I think, one of the most lethal. And it is a game called Yes or No, where, and this was going to have no instructions. I would have read this. With that icebreaker out of the way, we're going to play our next game, Yes or No. The question every round is simply yes or no, and the answer each round is simply yes or no. You'll spare yourself torture based on whether or not you are correct or incorrect that round. Each of you will have one opportunity to share what you think the rule is. If you are right, the fun is over for everyone and you win the game. But if you answer wrong or are not the one to guess it, you lose. And I was going to ask yes or no in a variety of ways. Ask you plainly, ask you in infernal, say it like just structure the question differently or with different inflection, sing it, have Smash bring out corpses with yes or no tattooed on their chests. Have spell scrolls activate like a cursor on each body and wriggle as they begin to animate. Yeah, like one of them animates yes, one of them animates no. Pull the words yes and no out of a bag of holding, etc., etc., etc. Cast command on players, on player characters. Have one of them say yes, have one of them say no.
There's the Guardian, number 19.
Yes, have a Guardian appear.
I thought the robot was going to be Death. Who was there when I called that a long, long time ago? Nick, you were there?
Yes, I was there. I remember you saying that the dungeon guardians would show up.
Yes, that was one of the things you told us to remember.
Yes.
You'll quote it.
Yes.
Or no.
Yeah, have them come out and ask. Bring out a mimic that says it. Pull out a deck of many things. Draw 2 cards. One of them is yes, one of them is no. Spirit guardians of the ancestors of one of the player characters will be summoned and chant yes or no. Etc., etc., etc. I was ready to improv a lot of things, but I also had this list of 20. And essentially, there is a rule that exists for this game, and if you guess correctly, you don't lose health. If you guess wrong, you take damage. You take 1 point of damage for a wrong guess. If you guess the rule and get it wrong, you lose half of your remaining hit points. And the rule is the answer changes every time. Whoever has the highest amount of health points is wrong. That is what, like, based on that person's response is the rule that determines what the answer yes or no is that round of yes or no.
That's amazing.
That's good.
Thanks, I hate it.
Yep. In the show Game Changer, there is a actor, Brennan Lee Mulligan, who does Dimension 20. At least he's the GM for most seasons of Dimension 20. Sam Reich, who hosts the show, brings him on and introduces him as the like champion of Game Changer because he's won a lot of episodes of it. His rule, Sam Reich's rule for that episode is Brennan is always wrong. But I knew that some of like Eric was watching this show, so I couldn't have a rule that was like one of you is always wrong. So I came up with whoever has the most health is always wrong as a way to continue to whittle the party's health pool down on like as a whole. And also have like an interesting rule. So
Guessing wrong, we'll never die from it. If it only halves our health, then we always have something.
but you can only guess the rule once.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I had 3 games planned before the commercial break, but I think it was taking a while, and I think I needed time because of my puppy. So I cut to the commercial break sooner. Other games I had planned. What's that?
Puppy saved us.
Yeah, puppy saved you. I think you all would have had a lot less health going into the commercial break if we had played that game, and it also would have made it a lot more difficult to fight head to head if you didn't have your stuff. The other games were Weakest Link, which was just going to be a one-on-one PvP tournament. And then a Blight Elephant gift exchange, where there are... I think I described this one after we played, but there was going to be, like, presents. You all pick one. I would tell that player what is inside, and then they would get to tell everyone what was inside. Either they could bluff or tell the truth, but the other players wouldn't know, and then it was up to the other players to race to see whether or not they would steal that player's present. And they could opt to, like, no, I want it. I'm taking it, and beat everyone else to it, and steal the present from the player that chose it and bluffed or told the truth. Or they could all decline and let that player keep the present, and whatever was inside would happen to that player character.
Why do I get the feeling that Rumbleroar would have just stolen everything?
He would have tried.
I mean, looking at this table, most of the things seem pretty okay.
Let's see.
Half of them are pretty bad.
There's
But
7
the other half,
good ones and 6 bad ones. So there's actually more positive outcomes than there are bad outcomes. But I think the bad ones are really bad. Like
Use your tongue.
get punched by
But,
an
like,
ogre.
I'll
Plus
take get punched by an ogre. Like, whatever, man.
2d8 plus 4 damage.
I've got 2d8 plus 4 hit points.
Gain temp HP. Gain the bless effect for the rest of your life.
That's a sweet one.
Oh my god.
That's a sweet one.
I had like permanently destroy your weapon or spell focus. That way it wouldn't be recoverable ever. I think in the context of the story, that was actually a really bad one because like the intention was to never give those back to you from the Mind Slayer's perspective. lose a hand, lose an eye, get hamstrung, lose your tongue, all caused damage, and then also like that character now can no longer wield two-handed things or wield two things in their hands.
Lose a hand, you'd have been all right. Just chop off your left hand, and then you'd have been all right.
Oh my god! I just
That's excellent. Good job.
I was looking at the get a short rest, and I just thought of the most diabolical. So, the player redeeming that gets to just go backstage and rest for half an hour, and then all the while the other players are just getting tortured.
Oh my god!
So that way they
Oh
don't
my
get
God.
a short rest.
Yeah.
Temhr takes a nap to get his stunning strikes back.
All
They're
that.
all just dead.
Yeah. Lose an eye, lose 6 health, and have disadvantage on any checks that involve sight beyond 10 feet. Get hamstrung. So like have your like leg
Oh my God.
cut. Have your speed. The time of recovery would depend on a medicine check to treat it. Lose your tongue. You cannot speak and have disadvantage on all checks involving oral communication for the rest of your character's life. There was
what is it? Lesser restoration or
I think
major restoration?
regeneration is what you need.
Eventually.
It's a
Regeneration.
7th level spell, so.
Well,
Yeah.
good news is I have vessel restoration.
Is there a somatic component to that spell?
Oh,
Is there a verbal component to that spell?
Or I'm sorry, verbal, not somatic.
I'm
What
gonna
did I-
check the roll 20
Yeah.
while you continue on the list.
There was roll great on the loot table, recover half your health, gain death ward. I don't even remember what that does. I think it just like prevents the next time you would die and sets your health to 1 instead. I don't recall if that's a spell or something I invented.
Yeah, it's a spell.
Oh, okay.
Next time you go to 0 instead, go to 1, basically.
Yeah.
Become a half orc.
And then there was this one, which I thought was clever. Undo a penalty that you've received or duplicate a reward that someone else has received. That one would be interesting because it really entirely depends on when it's picked and what else has been picked.
Lesser restoration does have a verbal component, so I would have been hosed.
You would have been hosed.
Super screwed.
Yeah. So, yeah, those were the games. There was also going to be like, all right, y'all get taken, for another commercial break, and things are looking dire. And I would have given you all another opportunity to jailbreak. And then I would have just killed your players. Or nope, not the players. I would have killed your characters.
Oh, good God.
Oops.
No.
Oh no, this VOD just got deleted. Bummer. I didn't admit to anything. So yeah, those were all the games I had planned, and I would have had to have ended the show, and yeah, I would have just said we fade to black, and those characters never returned to the city.
I mean,
Right, but who won the game show?
I think we would have had to have just done like a luck roll and determined who survived the game show at that point and who got to live in confinement the rest of their life as the quote-unquote winner of Brain Changer, whereas everyone else would have been turned into intellect devourers.
I thought when you originally kind of told us that we would die, is the fact that most of us would die. The fact that you went easy on us.
I didn't though.
Or I should say the fact that we survived. I assumed that. Oh well, you just threw that component out. You went easy on us.
I tried to be really clear with you all that I did not have a plan to just like let you escape. I wasn't going to help you with it, I think is what I tried to say. It just so happened. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. There was a point where it seemed like you were doing a couple of rolls, like we were getting chased.
Yes.
How fucking lucky were we?
Okay, yeah,
during
let's
those moments?
talk about that.
That's what I want.
Okay, so I'm going to use Temhr's token here to describe where you all are. So, and then I'm going to grab the Mind Slayer here, who I'll set up again. So y'all are like, oh man, I'm trying to remember now. So you all like start sneaking this way or something like that, and the Mind Slayer is like, oh, they're down here. So he starts floating this way towards you all, and y'all like ditch. Y'all come down here, you go into the Blood River, you're running this way, I think. And
we went up there, then we went to the left again. Yeah.
Yeah. Or no, okay, wait, hold on. I think it was you all snuck out here. This is the point it happened, right? The Mind Slayer came around this corner. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
It was at that point that we started really getting chased.
Yeah, okay. So you all ran back this way. The Mind Slayer's like, I'm going to go cut them off, and he starts floating down this way, like to like cut off your escape. But you all back out and go back into the Blood River. And he starts like calling his Intellect Devourers and his Corpse Collectors. And he's like, we're just going to wait here for them to come around the corner. We're going to like hold them off. And then y'all like are booking it. And he's like, fuck, they're not coming this way. So he starts going back this way because he's thinking, I need to protect this orb that I have that connects with death. So he starts going this way. And he goes up here. And you all, he like went in here. He comes around the corner. You all are in here. I'm rolling to see like, okay, he like secures this place. He gets Smash to protect here. I don't know why I have Smash all the way over here, but Smash is gets called in here. And then y'all run in here. And it is like, as soon as you all like passed through here, he leaves this door. Like the timing was incredible. You all run this way. He's coming this way. He floats over here, and y'all go in here, and he misses you all.
Yeah, that was such an amazing moment.
I ask you about how loud you're being. Y'all are like, we're being extremely quiet. I think maybe I have you make a stealth check, or I make like a perception check for him behind the scenes. Y'all are fucking silent as shit. He floats this way.
Yeah, he asked them like if they were moving quickly or like if they're prioritizing like running.
Yeah. And then he hears like this door open from the homunculus and talking. So he starts going back this way, and that's when he gets around this corner. And he's basically like moving this way as you all are setting up like your ambush, and that's when he like floated around the corner and we started combat. It was incredibly lucky. I was rolling intelligence checks down here. He botched it and did not pursue you all. And then you got really lucky with the timing of him going over here to where his like shrine to death was, or not shrine, but like basically his comms room.
Yeah.
Now I did articulate that y'all get a really dark and bad vibe from this over here. And that was from the orb that he had that allowed him to communicate with death. It was not from him specifically. So yeah, y'all, this was like fucking, I should have had Scooby-Doo music playing, honestly. If I had known what was going to happen, I definitely would have turned on Scooby-Doo music and like just revealed the map.
We all watched the stream. That wouldn't have been much help for you.
I knew you were hot on our heels the entire time.
I wasn't though. He just was fucked up. He fucked up.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like we were
times.
very lucky.
Yeah.
For a lot of that encounter.
Yeah.
Or before we ran into the homunculus part of the encounter.
Yeah. It's really funny though, because at one point y'all were standing like right here. And I asked you if you wanted to whistle, and I think you were like really seriously debating it because like I asked you what the range was on your whistle or how far it needed to be, and you were like, oh, it just needs to hear me. And I'm like, it can hear you. Like if you were to whistle at this point, other things would have definitely heard you, but your homunculus would have heard you. And it would have come flying.
That's what I was waiting for. I was waiting for him to whistle for his homunculus, and then everyone just aggroes to your location.
Now, I think that would have turned out to have been a bad call because the homunculus isn't going to carry. It's only going to carry like what, your screwdriver or whatever your thing was.
No, that's exactly right. My screwdriver, definitely not. The thieves' tool spell focus, but same.
Whatever your spell focus was.
It would have made me combat effective,
but not the rest of your party, which is what it turned out to be.
Right.
Yeah. Oh man, that was so funny. That
moment that they walked into the room and look across and the Mind Slayers walking into the room at the same time.
Yeah. That
was so amazing.
I kind of had a plan for what the Mind Slayer was doing during the commercial break, and one was like he's reporting back to Death your secrets that he got basically as like a hey, this is going really well. And then he was gonna like come down here, I don't know, eat something, and then I was like, he has nothing else to do, really, so he was going to go back and, like, prepare to return you all to the torture, which is why he was, like, returning to that room. And I just thought it would be absolutely comedic, given, like, what was happening. I started keeping track of where he was when y'all started, like, talking about going through this door over here to the left. I started being like, okay, here's exactly where he is. I added him secretly to the initiative order and moved him on his turn. And then it just so happened that it was so close that I fudged it and was like, okay, he's coming into the room at the exact same time. Because I think that's funny and interesting and more cinematic.
Yeah, I went downstairs and described that moment to Sam because I thought it was just so hilarious.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's effectively like bodies piled up here that these corpse collectors were just ferrying on a mine cart back and forth with this dumping hole, which is gross to think about.
Was there anything particularly going on with that? Like a
no
objective with that, or was it just interesting?
This map was particularly useful for the purposes of like its layout, but I don't like the theme of it being super gross. But it's what I had to work with, or what I chose to work with. So, yeah. I have plans for I have plans is what I'll say. So we will definitely see more of this theme later in the future Deadly Dungeon 2.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. That's really all I wanted to talk about with this episode, other than that I found that little theme song I played at the beginning is the here, let me find it really quickly. Oh, where is it? It may or may not play, but it's the same song that they use in the show Game Changer, which is this Semvoce by Harper Ray. I downloaded this and edited it to get like a much shorter version, but also hit these like really tense moments in the song of like uncertainty and tension. So yeah, it was really fun to prep for this particular episode, which was more planning this stuff than it was like creating a map and monsters. I had a
Fun stuff.
I had a great blast with this one. Yeah, we'll definitely play some more. Make some noise, like D&D, make some noise maybe in the future as a one-off.
Yeah, it was absolutely delightful. Like as soon as it started and I saw like the overlay that you had with the rainbow colors, you in the suit and just the
Labor of
intro, I was
love.
like, I picked to be on the wrong episode. This is amazing.
Yeah,
Till I didn't.
I mean, yeah, I really enjoyed our episode, but yeah, this was definitely one that I regretted not being on.
Oh, I'm
I was
sorry.
just like, I want to do this so bad now. It's so good.
I used an AI art generator to try and make like a little brain changer art asset, and I got a couple of interesting ones.
Brain Shemanger.
Brain schmanger. I really liked
AI
this
art.
one for how like blank stared 3 of the characters are, but then there's this 4th one that's like really excited, and it didn't really work that way. Here's another one that was really cool. I really liked, except the like text on these was really weird and off. Also, this like mind flayer, I don't know, it kept coming up with some really weird shit on Bing. This was also like a good one. There was also this one that there's just a character in front of a podium, and yeah, it was having a hard time with the characters at the podiums, but otherwise these were really good. We ended up with this one. Nope, not that one. This one I liked a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That almost looked like it was commissioned.
Yeah, it does almost
the
look like it was
characters looked
commissioned.
enough like the characters as they were described that I was like, did.
Yes, and we
I know
totally
Nick
planned
AI.
that, right, Nick?
That's exactly right. I'm gonna show you the Game Changer logo. I did basically steal it, except I changed game to brain, and I used the font that I have for Deadly Dungeon for the word. So like here's Game Changer. Or at least someone made this, I think. It actually is not the official one, but I then made Brain Changer here with the Deadly
good.
Dungeon font. Yep. That was really fun to make as well. Okay.
Before we leave this session and move on to the next one, I just want to say, like, my character Garvin also has Armor of Agathis, and that's by way of the like, what do they call it? Magical secrets that bards get at 6th level. So when Eric described his Armor of Agathis, that was literally the same thing I was going to describe for mine. So that just made us decide, like, off screen, that Garvin learned Armor of Agathis from Heldrick while they were still in the band together.
Yeah. So that's pretty clever. One other thing I was prepared to do is, here's the exit, like literally right by your jail cells, and I was ready to just like, yep, y'all leave. If you can defeat these intellect devourers, you escape. You lose all your shit, and you don't have the Noitas Revnogni, but you escape.
Yeah.
So
That's so good, because that was the stairs that the key was hanging from, right?
yeah, this one right here. This one. Yep.
No one's gonna leave the front door. Like, we're not just gonna like. You know, that's a trap.
Yeah. Now, these intellect
bait.
devourers would have like set off an alarm essentially, or communicated with the Mind Slayer that y'all were fleeing. But if you can get through this door and make it out the hall, like, you're gone. I was prepared to let you do that. And I probably would have killed a player character, maybe 2. But who knows? But you got that damn sword. That sword really helped. I didn't have a plan for how you all were going to break out. I was just going to stick you all in cells and play the game as I intended, and then kill your characters at the end of all the games if you couldn't make it out.
Yeah.
Um,
Sword is really good.
yeah.
It just pops into existence.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to move on to the finale. So I had this amazing, lovely map, and I was like, yeah, this is big and wide open. I'm prepared to use this. I have this massive, like, solar wall of Apollo I'll use. The Power Rangers will show up in a strategic location and dive down on the other half, which is why I was like, hey, Soul and hey, Shadow, I need you on opposite, like, sides for this to work, like, thematically with your rivals. And so I did. And the Power Rangers, I think I had 5 of them prepped, but I didn't want to overload you all. Turns out I should have. The Power Rangers were essentially just level 3 Rangers, level 3 Way of Shadow Monks, and level 3 Phantom Rogues. I had initially made them as level 4 of each of those, giving them a huge amount of stat increases because that's 3 ability score improvements. But then I was really nervous that I would overpower you all, so I weaned it down like at the last minute. They had, as a result, a lot of abilities, and I gave them all different weapons. I wanted them to have a little bit of a stat bump in terms of damage and attack rolls, but also in a way to hand you all more tools with all of those +1 weapons, which I found hilarious when John decided to throw one of them over the edge and effectively lose that weapon. I gave each of them, most of them had the same fighting style, which I chose. I initially chose 2-handed weapons, or dual weapon fighting, but then I'm like, I don't want to have to make a lot of extra attacks. To save time, I will just have them all with dueling, which is if you're wielding one weapon in one hand and nothing in the other. But then I gave the archery one, the fighting style archery, which I think I forgot to apply every time they attacked. Maybe I didn't, I don't recall. But I gave them the ability to just like make you all favored foes. They had the ability to wail from the grave and do basically like multi-target damage, but they never seemed to get advantage on many of their attacks because y'all handled them very well. They didn't get to use sneak attack very often either, but it also wasn't a lot of damage, only 2d6. And favored foe was only 1d4, and they really didn't hit a lot of their attacks because of how well you all overpowered them. I definitely should have.
Slow was very, very, very strong in that encounter.
Yeah. I don't even. Here's the other ranger I meant to add, but then I got nervous, and it was the Twilight Ranger. Maybe it was a different one. I had a 5th Power Ranger planned. There was Eclipse, Night, Twilight, Zenith, and Dawn. Oh, there was a Dawn Ranger somewhere. I might have just deleted them. Yeah. But the god Apollo, god of the sun, was like the main driving force of this encounter. He had a lot of stuff that I immediately tuned down that we saw, and there was also stuff on the back end that I also tuned down, like how much health he had. I basically cut his health in half when I realized how strong he was. I
had stages on that fight.
Yeah. Initially, when I planned him, he had 21 AC, which I realized was going to make him nearly impossible to hit, especially given some of his reactions. So I lowered his AC and was more aggressive about how I used some of his reactions to reduce hits and stop spells.
One of the reasons...
Yeah.
Pardon me. Just
Go ahead.
an interjection. I heard one of the reasons why DMs don't like high ACs because it's not very fun to just attack and keep missing.
Yes, agreed.
Hmm.
I completely
That makes
agree.
sense.
Yeah. Now, because of how many characters you all had on your side and action economy, I found that there are several monsters, official D&D monsters, that have multiple reactions and higher than 3 legendary actions. I had planned for him to have 6 legendary actions and 3 reactions, but I felt like 6 legendary actions was kind of bullshit, considering some of his were cast a spell, make a dash or dodge action. I decided dodge would have been way too powerful given what his AC is. And make an attack. I listed only make an archery attack because I was like, let's name these legendary actions after what kind of like god Apollo is: god of archery, god of dance, god of truth. And then I added Son of Zeus for casting a spell. But yeah, I didn't really use any of these besides the god of archery. I also got completely surrounded very quickly and had this flying dude land immediately in the fight and not just stay flying, which was really stupid from his perspective. But I just like was like, yep, I'm gonna make an attack as a legendary action, and I never posted like a legendary action that stated that he could make a melee legendary action. That was an on-the-fly decision to like make his legendary actions effective and whittle down health. But anyway, he has some other spells that are interesting. He was controlling the weather, which I kind of foreshadowed or nodded at that with how I described some of the weather opening up. He also had the power to control the sun's movement, which is why the sun didn't move until he was dead. He had a bonus action to heal, but I only used it to use Sacred Flame because of how many of you there were. I immediately tuned down his blinding aura and instituted that once you passed, you don't need to make the save again, because I realized y'all were going to be blind most of the fight if I didn't.
Yeah, that would have been frustrating.
Yeah. He and Death, their mind could not be read, and also his radiant weapons, I don't think I changed the damage on those. Let's see, what else did he have? The layer actions, I probably could have been more proactive about choosing which one of these he used. Between his blinding presence affecting further distance, destroying magical effects, and making hostile creatures suffer radiant damage. I think the first time I used this, Greg was like, so no save? And I went, yeah, you can make a save, and I immediately edited this because I realized that was unfair to take 2d4 radiant damage with no option to do anything about it. What else? He had Unyielding, which was if you tried to move him or knock him down, he could just not be knocked prone. Also, Death had that, but he used all of his reactions before you all tried to... I don't remember who knocked him down, but someone used a shove or something on him and knocked him, quote-unquote, prone.
Yeah, it was Eric with the Hexblade.
That's right.
Smite stuff.
Yeah. He also had this, God of Prophecy. When another creature Apollo can see makes an attack roll, an ability check, or a saving throw, Apollo can use his reaction to impose a 1d4 penalty or bonus. Yeah.
That's pretty sick.
It's basically like a
Bardic Inspiration.
Yeah, a Bardic Inspiration, or one of the wizard.
Divination dice.
Yeah, exactly. I also had planned on letting Apollo continue
that's what it is.
to use his reactions and legendary actions in his death form, but he also was proving to be extremely powerful, and I didn't want him to kill too many of you. I fully intended to flame strike a bunch of you and that to be a way of killing you, because I was like, he has to do something with an action of his. If I'm gonna get a kill, I don't want it to be on some bullshit legendary action. I want it to be with his primary action. So I used a flame strike, but unfortunately, Rumble Roar countered that. You son of a gun!
I forget what he did to counter it.
Hey, Rumble, are you asleep?
He had.
All right.
You had the amulet of being
Good night,
counter
buddy.
spells constantly.
Good night, buddy. Sleep well, sweet prince.
Cam gone.
So he also had the summon elementals, which was summon children of Helios. He only attempted to use that once. I forget what happened with that. I think it got countered by the Noitas Revnokni. He technically shouldn't have. I shouldn't have let that happen because it wasn't a spell, but I wanted to let him make that decision of this cool item I gave him, so I let him do it.
Right.
But the plan was to have a bunch of these small radiant elementals, which I think are just. I think I took like some mephits, or no, I think I took magmins and I made them more radiant than fire damagey. But they would explode and like cause blindness. They could basically do acid splash, except it was branded as solar splash. Just to give like other targets and create an additional threat. But I definitely could have done more with Apollo like flying around. But I
It would have been difficult to hit.
Yeah,
It
no
definitely would have
kidding.
been,
no kidding.
accurate or.
What
So
were
I was
his
gonna-
damage resistances?
Oh, his resistances were he was resistant to necrotic, poison, and any physical damage that was non-magical. I also made him immune to radiant, but then Greg used a huge ability that was radiant damage, so I made a judgment call right then and there to make him resistant to it instead.
Yeah, I think that was a good.
So I let half of that damage through so it wouldn't be a feels really bad man moment.
Yeah.
So that was another example of like an executive decision I made on the fly to make sure that it like wasn't extremely frustrating, especially given that Greg had been struggling with all of his rolls.
Yeah, I know. He just had bad dice. Like
He had
roll
really bad
20
dice.
had no love.
Yeah. So let's get to the Avatar of Death. Or not the Avatar, Death himself. So this was the battle map. There were several entrances I have circled here in. And yeah. The plan was, like, y'all fight Death, and at some point he phases and he flies into this portal and then starts summoning his avatar, which was going to be, like, another fight. But things were going so long that I just chose to abbreviate y'all wailing on the avatar. Maybe I should have had, like, rolls for, like, who suffers of mortal injury. I think in retrospect I could have like done like luck rolls to see who falls during that fight and dies. And that could have been
Probably would have been Rumble.
a more interesting
Rumble's
way
character.
for it to be like, yeah, this is a lethal fight. Because like the Avatar of Death, 400 hit points, and I was basically gonna let Lord Death continue to take actions as the Avatar of Death and attack you all with like cleave attacks or spells or shit. But we were just running out of time, and I decided to speed that along. But looking at Lord Death, he initially had a lot more than 200 health. I changed that. He has a lot of skill checks. He's extremely beefy. His AC I left at 21. Resistant to cold and, again, physical damage that's non-magical. Immune to necrotic and poison. He had advantage on saving throws against spells. His form couldn't be altered. He had 5 legendary resistances. He had True Sight, I think. Yeah, True Sight up to 120 feet, as well as Ethereal Sight. He could see into the ethereal plane as well. We had his Frightful Presence, which worked pretty well. I think it might have been a little frustrating for some people to not be able to be frightened for a long time. But I had this cool, I don't know, I was really inspired by Hunter x Hunter and the whole like Hisoka and lethal, or not lethal, but like malicious aura, and just being unable to approach an enemy made him feel very powerful, despite the fact that he was, being attacked by 12 characters.
11.
Well, 11 heroes and a horse. 12 characters.
And a direwolf or whatever.
Well, sorry, that's what I meant. The direwolf mount. Yeah. Yeah. So from your perspective, how did this Frightful Presence that was like DC 20 to not be paralyzed, DC 13 to not be frightened? How did you each feel about that aura?
It's really good. Like, it should feel oppressive. This is death after all, right? So I couldn't think of many other ways to give, like, mechanically a like foreboding presence to a character other than like a fear effect like that. And I think it really mattered. It kept us from all charging in. A lot of us failed, and it took us a while to break through and then be able to approach them.
I think one of the frustrating things for me is that there is counterplay to some degree, right? In that you can do some things like you can get Bless. If you have it prepared, you can do like what's it called, Calm Emotions.
Yeah.
So there are some things that you could do, but he could just use his reaction to stop all those things. Like I repeatedly tried to cast Bless because I wanted to get everybody into being able to do the fight.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that there were several moments. Maybe I don't know. I didn't pick up on it from you, Coron, but when Eric was trying to cast some spells, it felt really bad because it felt like I was making him completely ineffective. And maybe you felt the same way.
I mean, I just had to accept that, like, on my turn, the thing I'm going to be doing is using one of his 3 reactions.
Yeah.
And that's going to be my contribution because there's 11 of us.
Yeah. Yeah. I had kind of hoped that it would, like, the vibe among the party would be like, we have to work together. Okay, here's another thing that surprised me. There was not a single help action used the entire episode.
Yeah, help actions are often forgotten about.
Like, grant someone advantage? Damn.
Yeah.
That's powerful when you have 12 people fighting, like, one. And they are super chunky and can't be hit. I know a lot of people had a lot of way to gain advantage.
Well,
and
yeah, I mean, the other thing is he just has these reactions. So if you spend 2 actions to soup up one action, then now he uses 1 reaction to cancel that.
Yeah.
Then now that feels bad, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, y'all had a lot more action economy than he did. So I don't feel necessarily as bad about that.
Right.
But
I'm just saying, like, strategically, that's why you wouldn't, right?
Yeah.
Is because if you pile 2 actions that get canceled by a reaction, you're losing action economy, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas if I cast Bless every turn with my action, then I'm getting his reaction each time.
Right. Yeah. I had kind of wondered if y'all would just continue to try and brute force your spells, or if you would like pick up on the fact that he has only so many reactions and wait until he had run out before trying to use reactions before trying to use some bigger spells. and maybe only use like cantrips or level 1 spells to try and bait those out. And you didn't, but you baited his reactions before doing other things like running through the fucking portal and running away from him and not provoking attacks of opportunity. So
That was really good.
that was some good counterplay as well. And the beacon, I think Beacon of Hope was some really strong counterplay that Swan set up.
Yeah, Swan set it up, and then you ended up bringing it down because he broke his concentration. But
then you got another one through.
yeah, but then I had taken it as my other like magical secret, and I was so glad for that moment because
That was huge.
Yeah, it
Both of
felt
those.
awesome. I had so much fun. That was my first time like really doubling down and committing to just being support as a character.
Yeah.
And I had so much fun with it, and it really genuinely made me feel like I was super useful. Like it definitely mattered. The little bardic inspirations, every little bit. Felt really good.
Oops, 1 second. I'm going to disable Rumble's video right now so we don't have to watch him sleeping anymore. Okay, let's look at some of his other stuff. I think I had planned on Death transitioning at half health back when he had like 400 health and 21 AC, which would have been crazy. So I dropped his health and I played an audible where I had his mythic trait, which is like he phases. I was like ready to change that to whatever I needed it to be when it felt like the right time. Especially when y'all started going for the portal. So I was very much fudging his mythic trait in that moment, which I'd love to be able to do, having created custom creatures and having their stat block dynamic in front of me. Whereas like if I have it written out in a book and y'all are gonna like check my math on that later, would feel really cheap.
Speaking of, I do have a confession to make. My opening attack, so we were lined up by the gates or whatever, and I did get one attack in. I think it was a vicious mockery or something like that. It was like the only thing I could do to do any sort of damage that had 60-foot range was the furthest I could reach.
Okay.
So I walked through the gate and I totally mistook the statue in the middle of the cemetery as being Death, and I never like scrolled up all the way to see where he actually was.
That's really
and
funny.
He started talking about his fear aura and stuff, and its radius was 60 feet, but it wasn't reaching my character, and I was like, wait, that's not possible. And I scroll up and I'm like, oh!
So I didn't check your math on your range. Well, I mean, that's one trade-off I have is like I trust my players to check a lot of their own like stats like that because I just want to move things along and I don't want to bog things down with how crunchy the rules of D&D are. I'm a walking contradiction because I enjoy creating these crunchy shows where I, put you all through a deadly dungeon and then I don't kill you. I don't check my own math. I don't check your math. I don't engage with some of the highest crunchiness of the system, which is a huge part of what it is. And I'm fine with that. And you know what? That's just who I am. I don't care.
Yeah.
And
that's why I love you, Nick.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so Lord Death also had some bonus actions, one of which he used frequently. The bell tolls. He uses Toll the Dead. The other one he had was the ability to teleport, which I don't think he used, but would have been really fun to... And my plan was to, like, just gank people. Just, like, teleport around and fuck people up. And
You had him do that leap thing.
I gave him a flying speed of... Well, I didn't write down his speed. I just made him as fast as I wanted him to be.
Right.
Yeah, so, but that's essentially, I think, what this was instead of magically teleporting, it was like him basically doing what those characters in Harry Potter do, where they
Oh,
they're basically flying, even though
Yeah.
they don't have like a wand or not a wand, a broom flying them, like all the Death Eaters flying around. Anyway,
Yeah.
I wanted him to look really cool. So, let's see. He used Flight of the Damned, which hit like a fucking truck. Which was when he had like a bunch of spirits fly down and just strike the shit out of an area.
Yeah, that was like kind of his own Spirit Guardians type thing, right?
Kinda, yeah. He actually had Spirit Guardians as a spell. I just never used it. Or did he? Maybe he didn't. I should have given him Spirit Guardians. In his spellcasting trait, I listed him as Lord Death has every necromancy spell.
It's super appropriate.
And the listed spells prepared and may cast them without spell components. I mean, he's Death. He's got them. So I gave him a bunch of necromancy ones, even though I didn't intend to use a lot of them. Like Circle of Death would have fucked you guys so hard.
Yeah.
And that just would have felt unfair because it's just like, all right, everyone take 8d6 necrotic damage.
You know a necromancy spell that I really like because it's super cool thematically, and I don't see it used very often.
What's that?
Sickening Radiance.
Sickening Radiance.
Yeah,
I don't
look it
have
up.
that on
it's
here.
It's really cool because it does radiant damage, but the text, it's like radioactive, like radiation damage is kind of the flavor.
4th level evocation spell. Greenish light spreads 30 feet from a center of a point you choose. Light spreads around corners, lasts a minute. When a creature moves into this area or starts its turn there, it must succeed on a con save or take 4d10 radiant damage, suffer a level of exhaustion, and emit dim greenish light in a 5-foot radius. This light makes it impossible for the creature to benefit from being invisible. The light and any levels of exhaustion caused by the spell go away when it ends. Yeah, so this is like, this is radiate.
It's like radiation.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That is fun. That wasn't really the vibe I was going for with Lord Death,
No.
but
It was the vibe of Rognal's character being a character from Fallout, by the way.
that was a cool reveal. I did not know Rumble Roar had planned that reveal. That was really cool. Yeah, so as he is the Death incarnate, one thing I was really keen on doing was this Marked for Death ability where he could cause failed death saves, basically to march y'all towards death and make the encounter more lethal. I know that death saves are a big part of this, but since I was like fighting so many of you, I really didn't want to let y'all stabilize on death saves when you hit 0, and I didn't want to have to take actions to like hit y'all while you were down because that didn't feel very. I don't find that action to be very interesting in most situations, like hitting someone while they're down. So
I think you tried Mark for. I think I remember you saying it once or twice.
Yeah, I think you used it once. I think.
I
don't know if it was
save or
just
something.
you forgetting about it or what, but I think you only used it like once.
So his multi-attack was he makes scythe attacks and then uses either Flight of the Damned, which had a recharge and I don't think ever recharged. And then I thought I used Marked for Death quite a bit, but I think a lot of people passed.
I think you used it a couple of times.
Because y'all had like huge bonuses on your wisdom saves from the beacon. So I don't think it was doing much. I think y'all like did have huge counterplay on him. Even though I lowered his stats, I lowered his health. I wasn't expecting Beacon of Hope to be such a hard counter to most of his abilities.
Me neither.
Let's see what else. He had some layer actions. I don't think they were actions as much as they were just effects. So all death saves made. Oh, I don't know if I used this. Any healing made within his domain is subject to a 1d4 penalty, as is death saving throws. And his domain is anywhere within 300 feet of him. Because
Okay.
Well,
because he's death. I
The only
initially
healing I did was like after he went through the portal, I just rumbled back up.
So my plan was, as soon as he flew into the construct realm or conceptual plane, that cannot become his domain because of the nature of the Deadly Dungeons magic. So as soon as you phased him, he would lose all of these. Was my plan, but I didn't really use these very much, and maybe I should have. Death regains 10 hit points when a death saving throw is marked as a failure. I didn't mark many, or y'all didn't mark many failed death saves, so I don't think I healed him at all. I initially had him healing 10 hit points like every round, maybe I should have because.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Because
would've stretched things
he was
out.
taking so much damage anyway that I don't think it would have made a huge difference. But I got really worried that he would regen way too much health. So I changed that to when a death saving throw is marked as a failure, which actually could have healed him more than he heals 10 at the start of every round. So in retrospect, I might have
at every 6 seconds.
Yeah.
somewhere marks it.
Yeah. Well, especially since like one of his abilities that he can use every turn is marked for death, or not every turn, but every round is if someone fails a wisdom save, they mark a failed death save, they take damage, and he heals 10 hit points.
Yeah, so they don't even have to be down to mark a failed death save.
I think I forgot to use that, but it could have really helped. Creatures that die in his presence rise as zombies on their next turn under his control. I'll talk about this a little more. I definitely intended there to be more minions of his, like undead, in the area, but I chose not to use it because of how long things were going. Again, this would have been much better if we all had like 8 hours to sit down and play. But we didn't, which is fine. Here's another one.
Expecting a anti-Garvin.
Yeah. I didn't really have a plan for how to counter you. All I had was his reaction that like seized control of spirits, of spirit guardians.
Yeah, you mused about it after the game changer or the brain changer episode.
Here, I'll tell you exactly. Actually, I knew what my plan was. I just decided not to incorporate it. I just remembered what it was. So there is a creature called a dragon ghost. A ghost dragon? Ghost dragon, is it?
Oh man. That's scary.
So this is a undead dragon that has a terrifying breath. That causes necrotic damage. I was going to retool this to when it screeches, it causes all sound. It causes silence. It causes a silence effect when it roars. That was going to be my counter. But I chose not to incorporate it because I didn't want to add yet another creature that would cause this to last very long. Maybe what I should have done was made it like a layer, like a probability of like the dragon flies by and screeches and all sound is interrupted that turn, meaning not only you can't play your things, play your music, but also spells that require a verbal component cannot be cast.
Yeah, that would have been really, really sick.
I think.
But
yeah,
that would have added like another hour to our session, probably.
Yeah, I think if I had made it as like a chance and not added the dragon as a creature, but just as something that could affect the environment, that might have been more interesting and not added too much time.
You could have taken the idea and make it like a bell, like tolling the bell of death.
Oh, that would have been good too. That would have been really good. Like, all sound is drowned out except for the sound of this bell.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been really good. That's a good idea.
Thought for future use.
I also had initially planned that at the start of every turn, on the start of a creature's turn, they lose a health. They lose a hit point while in Death's domain. All creatures and plants, except for undead. But then I changed this because I got worried that I was just going to be like sapping everybody's health too quickly. I made it all creatures and plants lose 1 hit point for every minute. And that felt more like what you'd see in cinema, like things losing health slowly. And that way, like, oh yeah, a plant that is in his domain just dies because plants only, like, you know, a flower only has 1 hit point anyway. So, I didn't enforce that either because the fight just went so fast. So I think this is more interesting if you think about Death as like a character in a more long form campaign. But I could have done more with his layer effects. Let's see. Reactions. He had the parry. He could be unyielding and not be knocked prone. I ran out of reactions when he did end up getting knocked prone. I think I had given him 5. I had planned to give him 5 reactions, but I toned that down to 3, just like Apollo, when I saw how frustrating some of these things were getting. The Quiet Death, his ability to interrupt spells, was just like, they're interrupted. But so I instead gave him a check to see if he could interrupt them. In retrospect, I think this was a poor design choice, the ability to interrupt people's spells, because it felt like, oh, I'm casting this, you know, 2nd or 3rd level spell, and all I got was this reaction used up.
Yeah, that's just the nature of counterspelling, and I
Yeah,
never.
so
Counterspell is just like an anti-fun.
Yeah.
yeah, at least in some cases with counterspell, you can feel like they're also using a resource, right?
Right.
So one of the things that's a little bit more frustrating about it is just like a, you know, non-resource intensive reaction. I mean, not saying that like these reactions aren't an important resource. Obviously they were for this fight.
Yeah.
But it feels less like you're getting somewhere, right? If he can just
Yeah.
do it to you again on the next turn without
Yeah.
If it was on a recharge,
Ooh. Yeah, that could have been good. Like, it's a reaction that he can only get back. Like, he can only use once per round, maybe? Or
like just like a breath weapon, like he can use it whenever he wants, and then after he uses it, he can't use it again until he rolls a 6 on a d6 during like his turn.
or give him like 3 and then recharge 1 on a 4/3/6 or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are all really good ideas that I didn't consider, and I really wish I had, because I was saying, it felt really cheap to do, and I could tell that some people were really frustrated with it.
Well, the good news, Nick, is there is a new death roaming the Ravenlands.
Yeah.
So you get to create that death.
Not the Ravenlands. That's a different show, my friend.
Oh, right.
Well, I mean, this place has all the stories in it, right?
That's
the
true.
Ravenlands exist
That's
here.
true.
This place has ravens.
Oh my gosh. Okay, what else? Mortal Rebuke. I think I used this only once, but in response to being hit, he just deals 3d6 damage and teleports away. That was also going to be him dodging around, and I think in one of the comments about the Brotato episode was that the players felt like the combat wasn't very static, like everybody planted and rooted and just stayed where they were standing. They felt it was really fun to like run around and pivot around the arena as things were spawning all over the place. They really liked that. So I think I had intended for Death to be dodging around everywhere and force a lot of movement. But then when I saw how effective the aura was at keeping so many of you away from him, I was content with him just staying put and dealing with who was in front of him, but I really regret not having him jump around with his teleport. Or using Mortal
Yeah, that would've been
Rebuke
fun.
to get out of dodge. But I also could tell that it was going to be difficult for y'all to hit him in the first place. So him running away from all of the mainliners that had spent all of that effort to get in front of him also felt like it was going to be kind of cheap. So it's tough.
I would have laughed though.
It's really tough. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
to me, this entire experiment was just an exercise in how frustrated can I make my players without going over the line. And hopefully,
You did a great job.
hopefully I tiptoed that line well.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
The mark of a good DM is not just setting up cool and interesting scenarios and encounters. It's also being able to adjust those encounters on the fly to player experience. And
Yeah.
I think you did that very well. You made a lot of calls on the fly, especially since we went through these sessions. I'm glad we did, so we could see kind of how much you were working on the back end to make sure the things moved along,
Mm-hmm.
and also the players, us, we didn't get too frustrated.
Yeah,
It's just a
steamrolled.
mark of a good DM.
Yeah, thank you. I agree, and I do my best. Okay, let's talk about legendary actions. Death was supposed to have 6 of these. I don't remember if I actually used 6 or if I toned that down. But they were to attack, perception check, regain a reaction. When I saw how frustrating y'all found his reactions, I chose not to use that. He also had one where he could spend 3 actions to just summon lots of undead, and then cast a spell. I didn't use Legions of Death because I didn't want to add to the action economy and bog things down. Okay, the other thing I'll talk about is I had a plan for this final phase of Death, where he would be in his avatar, connecting with it, and as he was, there would be undead spawning outside and rushing towards the portal to aid him. They would walk through, there would be like zombies and skeletons and ghouls, and then there would also be specters and will-o-wisps. And what they would be doing is they would be coming from that vortex above and flying straight at him and helping him complete his avatar state. And basically, like, that would be the clock. And you could slow down the clock by killing the specters and will-o-wisps while also holding off the other undead and attacking the avatar. So it was gonna like create a lot of tasks that could be done and not just have everyone attacking Death. But of course we didn't have the time for it, so I did not engage with that plan. But it was part of my conception of what this epic final kind of phase would look like. And I was actually quite happy with where everyone's health and resources were at as we headed into that final phase. We just ran out of time.
Right.
So yeah, that was kind of my plan. Again, I think with some work, all of this could be a much more fun and interesting campaign than what it was, even though I had a blast, and I know that you all did too. And I'm really glad I invited you all to participate because y'all were like a really good group to try out all of this stuff with. You're very understanding and flexible. Know that like I'm coming from a good place and open to feedback. So it was overall a really good experience.
Yeah, one of the best that I've had for 5th edition for sure.
It's a great thing to just, talk with friends, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
Anything like that is just great.
Yeah. I conceived of this entire episode in terms of like, all along I knew y'all would be fighting Death. but I didn't know what Death's abilities were. I didn't know who would be the first fight, like the lieutenants of Death. I didn't know what any of those would be until you all introduced your characters at the starts of these episodes. And Soul was like, yeah, those fucking Power Rangers. And Shadow was like, yeah, this is Python, the mortal rival of Apollo. And I was like, oh my God, I just have to do that. So I think I created these encounters like in the 2 weeks leading up to it. I designed the whole thing. So I actually didn't have a lot of time. I just knew that I wanted Death to be a part of it. There was my buddy Ben I mentioned, who ran a D&D campaign. He was a heavy inspiration to this because of how well he designed boss fights and used like legendary actions and layer actions. I had never been in D&D where those had been used before, and they were so fun that all of his encounters inspired me to create all of these. And he had one with banshees that I wanted to do that encounter, but like tweak it. And add Death to it. And that was the whole thing that kicked off this entire concept and idea. Now, I ended up not using it, but I may in the future. I just figured I couldn't think of a way where it would be interesting to do the mechanics that Ben did that had... it basically had to do with the sun setting, which would have tied in really, really well with Apollo. And
the
like...
Rangers.
And, yeah, well... Yeah, I wanted to tie them into the sun as well. And basically the encounter was these banshees are stationary. They're in like a weakened state. Granted, I would have beefed up these banshees and made them super tough for 12 people to fight. They wouldn't have been banshees. They would have been like super banshees. But they stay put, and the sun is setting, and there's this like moving gradient of the sun, and as soon as the sun is no longer touching each of these banshees, they become fully empowered, and are no longer locked down, and then they like can start fucking up the player's shit. So it's kind of like a rage mechanic fight. I couldn't make it work in a way that I was pleased with as I was kind of tooling around with it. So I ended up doing this other stuff. But that was the initial idea that kicked off this entire...
like all 4 episodes?
Yeah, like the idea that I want to bring this cool legendary action and layer actions that I've never played with, even though I've done this entire D&D campaign of Deadly Dungeon. I want to do some boss fights. I want to do it with a lot of players fighting a really bad, big, evil guy. And I want that to be Death. Death, as a character, has nothing to do with my buddy Ben's campaign, but it was just an idea that I got. As I was thinking about, okay, so there's villains also rising from the Deadly Dungeon. Who would be a really interesting character that the dungeon would have summoned, who wants to grow more powerful, who maybe feels cheated by the Deadly Dungeon, like they weren't given the power that they recall from their quote-unquote life before being created in the Deadly Dungeon. Well, how about Death? So that's kind of where this all came from. And
Could have also chosen the Zorns.
What?
Nah, just you could have also chosen the Zorns. It was just
yeah, I mean
reference
they're
to
still out there, Temhr. They got a taste for
Yeah.
blood.
still scared of them.
They leveled up.
continue.
They leveled up when they killed your party.
course they did.
Yeah. So we may see them again for sure.
Yeah, it was all an absolute blast,
Yeah.
and it's cool to just kind of encapsulate these different concepts and just run them like the way you did. You're testing all these really unique ideas,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just really fun to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And now you know like what of these things works well, and I'm sure you can be inspired to like kind of sprinkle some of these lessons you learn into other campaigns and stuff.
Yeah.
That's why we do this.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I don't think I'd ever do like a 12-player thing again like this.
Yeah, this
it
was
gets-
absolutely
it-
insane.
yeah.
12 players
Yeah.
making it. You're a madman.
I am a madman, but I wanted to do it and I did it, and now I can move on. But I think
Right.
for Deadly Dungeon 2, like looking ahead, we have this world of Deadly Dungeon that has reached kind of a status quo where there are good guys and bad guys and other guys all leaving the Deadly Dungeon into a world that is constantly changing shape. So that status quo is really tenuous, and unstable. So there is a lot of blank space to revisit this when the status quo is disrupted again. Like, yes, your characters, like for the most part, all survived and stuck around. Some left and are in other areas of the Deadly Dungeon that we may see again. Like, it's still all the Deadly Dungeon magic creating all of that. Even those who left for other worlds, like those worlds are still within the magic of the Deadly Dungeon. So, yeah, like there's a blank space to revisit. What does it look like as like good guys and bad guys and whoever else are rising up? And so I'm excited to return to that. I have a lot of ideas. What was I going to say?
I was gonna say that I know Coron's character is back with his family,
Yes.
except for I made a small change that some sort of like psychedelic, not real, or something like this. I can't remember my whip.
You talked about gills.
Something like that. Yeah, some silly thing. Some very foolish thing.
Yeah, it's that like multiversal thing where it's like, I made it home. Oh, but wait, this isn't my exact home, but it's close enough. I'll accept it. Or maybe I won't. I love that. That was really funny, Temhr.
Now I just have to go and hunt down Temhr for the rest
Yeah,
of
clearly.
I like how I can just say hunt down
was-
Temhr since the character and the player are the same.
That's really funny. Yeah, but we have blank space for a lot of stuff, and the Dungeon Guardians will definitely return for sure. Yeah. So
Yeah, Eric and I decided that Helric and Garvin, like after these events, Helric eventually gets kicked out of the band that he kicked Garvin out of. So that they form a new band.
That's
and
awesome.
now that Garvin has an amulet, so his base can't get lost in the mix.
mhm.
Helric has heard Garvin's bass with the rest of the music for the first time, and he was like, "Hey, bass rules if people actually know how to play it." And there's like why weren't you doing this before? We might not have kicked you out last time.
Yeah.
But I would, in my head canon, the two band members that died in the Deadly Dungeon, like, got resurrected and exist somewhere, or they're in an alternate dimension or something like that.
Well, the
I
beauty
just
of
love
this
this.
is we can always, like, there's an infinite amount of source material that we haven't come up with that the rest of the people in the world that we live in have come up with that we can use. And also anything we create, we can just revisit, even if time, quote unquote, passes.
Yeah.
Because I've made such a blank space with this fiction. I love it. But yeah, looking ahead to Deadly Dungeon 2, I definitely want to, I don't know, I think the fewer people the better. I think 4 level 6 characters made things really tough to plan for. I think, and I've probably said this before, I really think that I want to do 3 level 7 characters for Deadly Dungeon 2.
That could be really cool.
Interesting.
And I'm
4 is like the standard format,
yeah,
so it'd be cool to like have something a little different.
yeah. I think I like 3 because then it makes some of the choices for like group composition really important. Action economy is a lot more balanced. I can throw like one enemy at you all, and it can still be really difficult. We can revisit some fights that y'all like overpowered because you had 4 characters, and instead do it with 3. Level 7 gives you all the opportunity to be even more cool in certain ways, and keeps the story moving forward quickly. And it'll also make episodes probably shorter, easier to schedule in the future, and
Yeah, I think it's a good call.
give players more screen time.
Yes, it does.
I think the last thing I wanted to add to that was I think that my plan for Deadly Dungeon 2 will be to have multiple storylines happening. I mean, there won't be floors, at least in the like sense I have. Like, it's going to take place in the overworld, not in the Deadly Dungeon itself again. But that there will be like areas of the world where a story is playing out, and a party can go in, and if they fail or wipe, that story will continue to repeat itself on a loop until resolved. Kind of like replaying missions in Gloomhaven.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, it'll be kind of almost West Marchy, like repeatable West Marchy.
I like it.
So, all right. I've been talking nonstop for several hours now. It's been 3 hours. So,
It's your world, man. Of course.
yeah.
You love it. You want to share it.
I do love it and want to share it.
Yeah, it's good.
I appreciate you all spending your afternoons and evenings hanging out talking about it.
I'm really interested to see some of the changes they're making with 5th edition.
Me too.
I think that could be a lot of fun. Make the marshals have more to do.
Yes.
I've got a catalog of different games and systems that I want to try out. So the list just keeps building up because more and exciting new things keep popping up, and they just sound so cool. So
Yeah.
I'll get around to trying out the next D&D thing eventually.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna rush into it.
I'm not either. I'm just going to wait for one D&D to come out.
Yeah.
But I am actively like writing down ideas for storylines for Deadly Dungeon 2. But I'm also working on the next season 3 of Fable Table, which is going to be, this is a working title, Scars of the Ravenlands.
I love it.
So, yeah, more. I am currently rewatching season 1 and building a wiki so that the community and players can refer to that to recall what has happened. It's mostly about me because I have lost all my notes as mentioned earlier. So that's part of what's been taking so long to get that going. But now that I'm done with this project, as of the end of this post-mortem, I can focus a lot of my creative energy on that. So with that, I will say thank you once again to all of the players and other people that helped me plan Deadly Dungeon Rising. It was an absolute blast.
Yeah, it was fantastic. It was awesome playing with all of you guys. I'm proud of the group that we have here for Fable Table and our shenanigans.
Yeah, y'all are a great community of people to hang out with and play games with. I really appreciate you. And this has been a really, on a personal note, this has been a really tough year for me, going through a divorce and having to give up my home and job and basically start everything over. But y'all have been here for me and super supportive, directly and indirectly, by helping me play games like this. So thank you. Y'all mean the world to me.
Yeah, thanks for bringing us together, Nick.
Oh, you're so welcome. I need
Love you,
you.
man.
So, yeah, this is all about me. So I'm using you all, and that's that. So,
At least that means I'm useful. Woohoo!
Yay!
Yes, you have utility in a capitalist
Value
society.
confirmed.
Fuck yeah. God. Okay, I'm gonna end the stream because I am hungry and loopy and punchy, and I could continue making weird comments like this forever. So with that, thank you for watching Deadly Dungeon Rising, the post-mortem. We'll see you next time with Fable Table or Deadly Dungeon 2. Bye-bye.